Haley.
Yeah.
Fayette.
Here.
Shannon.
Here.
Devontae.
Here.
Dante. Yep. Gillette.
Here.
KML.
Present.
Chris, just a second. Will.
I'm here.
Alexis.
Here.
Chris.
Here.
Sam. Here. George. Martin. Christina. Barbara.
Here.
And now we're going to move to the adoption of the agenda. The agenda's up on the screen. Are there any edits?
Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, could you just go on just a tiny bit? Yes, I move to place Bill 15-16-027, a bill to establish a Senate attendance policy to the end of the poll release. Second that.
Okay. The opposition. Okay. One second. Any other?
Speaker,
Yes.
I have an opinion to present.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Sorry,
move
you
to
said to me
include
after the
report
agenda
of the Chair of the Judicial Board
Yeah.
as item B,
No, we're
as
gonna.
item
Yeah, is there a second? Go ahead.
A.
I
Yeah.
have a brief report. It will be 2 minutes.
Move to include report from the President, item A.
Okay. Any other stuff?
Move to adopt.
Second. Okay. Any objection? Okay. Motion to adopt. We have 2 minutes to adopt. They were sent to you by email, straight from Kate. So those are minutes from the 11th. So we'll start with them. Is there a motion to?
I move to adopt.
Second.
Any opposition? Okay, and then the 12th?
I move to adopt.
Second.
Any opposition? Okay, cool. Now we'll move into period of public comment. Okay, now we're moving out, and we'll start with Sasha.
Okay, I'm gonna be really quick because I'm holding up now, so I'm mostly dealing with transition at this point, but there's one kind of like final stab project I'm working on that you all know about because I wrote a big press release about it, and it's Title IX. So the Title IX issue is in the process of being resolved. I shouldn't say issue because there's a complaint that now is completely out of the university's hands, and it's up to the Department of Education whether or not they're going to take the investigation. But my goal is that we won't ever have to deal with this kind of stuff for a very long time. So the conversation I had with Dr. Hansen, we can call it a conversation, was that we were going to do things so that we didn't have to deal with this anymore. And the first item was about the honesty and confidentiality policy, which must remain in some form as a part of FERPA. So it's not something that we could just tear up and say goodbye to. Another thing to note is that university policy cannot formally change until the following academic year. So the thing I'm about to tell you did happen, but it won't be fully enacted until next welcome week, basically. So the honesty and confidentiality policy was taken on by SOG. It was rewritten into 2 separate parts. So now there's an honesty section that just says like, during the hearing, you have to be honest. It's basically like the equivalent of taking an oath to not perjure yourself. The second thing is a confidentiality policy, which clearly explains that the confidentiality portion only applies to what is said by whom and what is said in the hearing, and has nothing to do with the sanctions. It has nothing to do with your personal experience. It just means that you can't say, hey, so-and-so said during the hearing X, because that would discredit the hearing process and also influence people to not attest during the hearing, which harms survivors and respondents and the entire hearing process. So that has been changed. Now, if there's a hearing, people are given that new document. They are also given the old document, but they don't have to sign it anymore. They won't be given the old document, and the new document won't have to be signed starting next year. So basically, check. And I will get back to you with the rest of the things. Cool? Okay, bye.
Can I have a question?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
This is about the budget, actually, on an unrelated note.
Okay.
How have your departments begun preparing / have they begun preparing
Um,
budget statements?
I sent an email about a week ago and I said, I didn't know if anyone had been contacted by the finance
I
committee.
know we're gonna hear about that soon.
Yeah, I didn't know, but I wanted everybody to like know that this was coming, so I sent an email that wasn't particularly interesting, but I can put it up on the screen. And let people know that this was something on the horizon and that they needed to start thinking about how they use their money, how effective the use of the money was, and what they would like to be in their budget next year. I also let them know that a separate but somewhat related stipend conversation will be coming up so that they should get their gears turning. I know that there's a conversation in the e-board about paying deputies and whether or not that's really an effective use of stipend money. Like KPU, it's a conversation. I'm not saying this is happening or not happening, so please don't like hold me to this and then use this against me during the stipend conversation, but there's a conversation ongoing about whether it's entirely fair that like a deputy gets paid $500, but somebody else who does a lot of work, who doesn't get the formal like deputy KPU director title,
Sure.
doesn't get paid. We don't know if that's the best way to do things, so we're trying to work this out so that it feels as though people who are paid are really truly giving this like equal opportunity experience with their stipends, and people who aren't paid don't feel like they're kind of getting like ripped off in
Sure.
a sense. So
Thank
we're all thinking about it. We'll be ready.
Awesome. Eric.
Hey everyone, we had one opinion that we issued since the last Senate meeting. This opinion 10.03 had to do with an election inquiry. The basics were 4 counts filed against the Mascara for President campaign, 3 of which dealing with saying that asking someone to drop out was coercive, intimidating, or hostile campaigning, and the 4th one was using student government resources for a campaign. On the first 3, the campaign was found not guilty, and the reason is, in the majority opinion, was that there was no specific definition of coercion in the governing documents anywhere. There was a Board of Elections precedent, which is not controlling, but we figured that would be the best thing to go with, that gave a definition of coercion from the Student Conduct Code or handbook, whatever. And so we used that as the standard. It is copied into the opinion if you want to read it. It's like 3 or 4 sentences. But the basic reason why we didn't find any coercion is it has to do with a physical force or a threat, and we didn't feel that the actions that could be proven were met that. Also, intimidating and hostile campaigning, we found that it has to be above just the normal competitive and adversarial nature of elections. It couldn't just be the fact that you really want the position, really want to get elected, and are willing to push the envelope a little bit. So there's that, and we specifically said that there has to be some kind of malicious intent, and the intent is to figure out whether the action was meant to damage a campaign or it was just kind of came into the background noise of the campaign cycle. And then the second part of the opinion was dealing with whether a person could be punished for actions that took place before campaigning officially began. We weren't able to come to a decision. It was a 2-to-2 split on whether election ethics apply at all times or only during campaigning. And there's 2 concurring opinions that can give you a little bit of guidance on what the thoughts generally of the board were. But what we did find in the majority and controlling opinion was that that the sections that have to do with election ethics can in some cases apply before campaigning begins. We found precedent in a previous ruling that said that they could apply at least a week before the election information session, and this was actually after the election information session. So we felt that we were within our precedent and within the governing documents to apply that standard and that sanction. So, and just this is of note for senators especially, in the opinion, we found that using the Senate office space specifically for campaign purposes is not allowed under the current set of elections regulations. And what the main reason behind that is that you have to intend to have a meeting in that room, if that makes sense. So the reason you are calling people into the Senate office is to discuss campaigns. If you're in the Senate office and you're doing office hours or whatever, and it just happens to come up, are you going to run? What are you going to do? That's fine. We understand that it'll happen. But if a meeting is specifically called in that room, that would be a violation. And we found beyond the governing documents, try to understand whether this should be allowed or not. We looked at two things. First is Congress. Any member of Congress is prohibited from speaking about campaign things in their own congressional taxpayer-funded offices. And we felt that a similar standard for student government, because our office space is specifically for student government business, it should be free from campaigning. And then we also did give a little bit of leeway, just saying that it can incidentally come up, but if the intention is to meet there for campaign purposes, it gives an unfair advantage because at least in this election cycle, if you wanted a separate room, you had to go through the elections commissioner and he would only grant 2 space requests. So being able to use the student government office space specifically for campaign meetings gave student government members an unfair advantage over those not in student government who want to run and become part of it. So that's the majority opinion. I won't go into the concurring and dissenting because it's not controlling, but y'all can read that at your leisure. Any questions? Yes.
So I know I'm probably one of the people in this room who really, really appreciates all the hard work that you did going into the hearing. I read 20 pages of your opinion.
24.
Opinions, and this is the 70 pages of paperwork I had to consult going into the hearing myself. I heard that the respondents' councils did extremely well and just killed it. So here's my question.
Yes.
So a good amount of that hearing and a good amount of other elections procedures were really adjudicated based on precedent from other judicial board cases. Personally, I find that very problematic because none of that has been legislated, and we have a specific judicial joint committee on elections policy to create policy, and yet a lot of times we go back on what previous J boards have done. So we haven't updated the policy book in a year. What do you think? How do you bring the two together and say,
Okay.
yes, the precedent is very important, but ultimately it may be more important. We might disagree.
So the first, and to answer the first part of your question, we are bound to follow our own precedent. Obviously, if the situation is different enough, we can say that precedent doesn't apply to this case. So we are bound in that way. But what I also would say is that the reason why the precedent was so important is because the specific subsection that was being prosecuted by the prosecutor was the exact wording of the subsection that was in the current case. So that's why we fell back on precedent so much, is because it doesn't make sense to make a ruling one way a year ago, and then a year goes by, nothing changes, and make a different ruling. So out of almost fairness, that's partially why we've relied on the precedent more.
Sure.
And then just on your second part, you're right, the Joint Committee on Elections Policy does have the ability. All of our rulings are full, open, public, and they have the ability to read them and say, okay, we agree with the judicial board's ruling, or as any legislature can do, they can change the wording that we interpreted, and then the precedent goes away because it's obviously new words. And if the legislative branch, whether it be the Senate that's changing the bylaws, or whether it be JSEP recommending changes to the elections policy, if you change it, then we're going to follow the new words. We're not going to follow the previous precedent. So that was the main issue, is that it had to change.
That's my other question. You're free sometime this week to do elections.
We'll work it out, but I look forward to it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, hi everyone. So I just wanted to go through a little bit of a timeline for the budget process now that we're heading into that part of the year. So I'm going to tell you the information I have and what I'm planning on doing. And if you have any questions at the end, let me know. There's some information I don't have yet just because it's not available, but I'll answer everything that I can. So first, let me tell you that BAC, the Budget Advisory Committee, which we talked about in the fall, but I'll give you a brief little refresher, is going to be meeting this Wednesday, sometime between 9 and 11. The time of the meeting hasn't been picked yet, but based on the doodle poll responses, I know it's going to be sometime in that window. That meeting is generally held in the media board office, which if you're in the lobby of MGC and you're, it's near the bathrooms in the second floor of MGC is a good way to put it, but I can tell you what room number it is if you need it. But it's open to the public, and so when the decision for the actual time of the meeting is made, I'm going to make sure that it's publicized on the Senate page and that everyone, at least in the AUSG, gets an email about it because it's open to all students, including members of student government. BAC is the group that represents or sort of deals with issues that come up with the three organizations that receive student money. So us, AUCC, and Media Board. There's 3 reps from each of those organizations. Ours are myself, Sasha, and Jake. And so any of us can represent your interest there. If you have any questions, anything you want voiced. And the purpose of this Wednesday meeting is going to be to receive the allocation number, so how much money we actually have to work with this year. And then 2, to negotiate the breakdown of how much each individual organization is going to receive. And then 3, probably to have some discussion about stipends and what that's going to look like, because we have to set a certain amount of money aside for all 3 of our organizations for stipends to pay for individuals. There's not going to be a huge amount of fluctuation in terms of which organization receives how much money based on a referendum that I think was passed in 2014. We can get as much as 55% and as little as 45%. It's in like a 5-point margin. We're probably going to get somewhere around 50. I think that's the intent of the referendum, but that's a separate discussion we can talk about later. Okay. Like I said, I haven't received any number. Last year it was somewhere around 900,000. I anticipate it's probably going to be somewhere around 900,000 again this year, and we'll take around half of that. So you can think about that number in your head if you're thinking about how much money we're likely to get. So after BAC, I just wanted to discuss sort of the timetable. I'm going to try to move quickly because we have transition coming up in our final meeting. I know that Kevin is planning some legislative reform to the way that the judicial process and the election process works. So there's going to be a lot of activity happening in these past few meetings. And so I'm trying to make the schedule for the budget process really public and up really quickly so that we can handle it in a way that makes sure that we're thorough and we get it done correctly. So after the BAC meeting, I'm going to come to the Finance Committee to talk about establishing a timeline for the rest of the budget process. My rough draft of that timeline is going to look like this. So a week from today, on April 10th, I'm going to submit a blank budget bill to the Senate just so that we have it. It's not going to have any numbers, but that way it can go to committee and then it can be put up for full Senate a week later on the 17th to be passed. During that week from the 10th to the 17th, we're going to have hearings throughout that entire week, open to every student who would like to make a pitch. Normally we just have people coming in from student government, but it's going to be open to everyone, and I'm going to make sure that we publicize that well so that students know when those meetings are. We're going to have a budget town hall probably on Thursday or Friday. Probably it's going to happen on Thursday, so that people come, so that students have an opportunity to sort of air any grievances or make any final recommendations that they might have, and to look at the numbers before we talk about them in committee and then they're passed. Hopefully the following Sunday on the 17th, we're probably going to have a Finance Committee meeting on Friday or Saturday to solidify and firm up the budget that will then be presented the following Sunday on the 17th. I'm also going to try to stay in really close communication with the incoming executives so that if they have any ideas or they want to influence what their budgets are going to look like, what their stipends are going to look like, it makes a lot of sense to have them closely involved in the conversation. I don't know why we do budgets now. It doesn't really make that much sense to me. Our fiscal year ends in April, so we have to, but I want to make sure they're really closely involved. And that is that. Any questions? Yes. Yes. Yes.
So a few. The first one you
Yeah.
said just a few seconds ago that members of the student body that are not members of the SG will be able to present. What do you imagine that looking like?
I imagine it looking like, I'm trying to think of an example. I imagine it looking like if Gabe was
not the speaker at the time when he made this recommendation. If you remember the trees recommendation, I imagine it looking like that.
So like you
So-
don't think that, John Q. student would come in and say, I think KPU should get more money?
No, I don't, and I think if that ever were to happen, I would inform the relevant director and let them know that someone's gonna come in and like argue on their behalf so that they have the opportunity to end that if they
Okay.
want to.
Or if something like that was to happen, someone to make a tree,
Yeah.
proposal, would they be held to the same, process as directors? So like you have to submit a proposal, what it looks like, how much
Yes.
is to be spent?
So after Wednesday's back meeting, I'm glad you mentioned that, I'm gonna send out like a memo to everyone with the procedure that needs to be followed for how to submit requests, how to schedule times for hearings, and how to make sure you get your money. Again, I'm not gonna mandate that you attend a hearing. If you can't attend one, I'm gonna let you submit a statement without attending a hearing. But like last time, I'm gonna make it clear that it is significantly preferential that you do attend a hearing because it offers us the opportunity to ask questions and make sure that we, like if you're asking for 8,000 and you don't come in and tell us why and we give you 6, like don't be surprised, I guess is the methodology behind that. Okay, sweet, thanks everyone.
I don't have a report, I just put it up here so you guys can ask me questions, if you guys have any questions.
So a few weeks ago, you put out an LO creating the joint committee on bylaw or election or judicial register, blah, 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 blah.
I still don't have enough members to appoint the members to the committee.
So my question then is, why is that?
That's a great question. I mean, I will make another Facebook post. This will be number 3, but I'm not gonna have a two or three person committee. Doesn't feel right. I mean, if we're gonna try to create a committee and the whole idea of a committee is a bunch of opinions coming together to create something, then that's not gonna be something that small. So, if I can get a few more people, I'll do it.
Because the alternative is me sitting in my bedroom until 3 a.m. I'm just gonna rewrite the Greek word, so please oblige.
If it's a joint committee,
If-
I have appointments, if so, I should. like-
It's not. It's just a Senate committee.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure I wasn't slacking.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, just a Senate committee. So,
Okay.
just a,
I
yeah.
think it's like a
Chris, did you have your hand raised? Are you sure?
I was just asking.
Same question.
No, I was gonna ask how you.
Oh, yeah, I'm okay. Yeah.
What's sort of like the timeline of like work that will have to be done if like people in the company? I know that's secondary.
Yeah, it's really up to the committee. I know KML, who is one of the people who's expressed interest, has said he wants it done before the end of this semester. So that would be a week or 2 period.
I'll type it to the fall.
Your call. Yeah, he's graduating. So yeah, the timeline is up to the committee. I'm flexible. It's just that's something that the Senate expressed they wanted. So I was willing to create it.
Excuse my ignorance, since I'm new, so what is this committee?
Yeah, that's
And what is it title and what are like the duties?
Yeah, so the committee is a committee to review the judicial registers. The judicial register is the governing document for, well, it used to be the governing document for the judicial branch, but now it is the governing document for everyone. And so, which is why we created this committee, because essentially the Senate, a few members of the Senate, it started with a few, and really the majority of the Senate, because we voted on this, felt that the judicial register had become a little too unwieldy, and there were some gray areas and there were some issues that needed to be resolved. And so they decided that the best method to fix this was, one, give us the power to fix it, because we actually did it. So that's interesting. And then 2, create a committee to look at some options for changes. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I would think you have discretionary speaking rights.
Yeah, sure. Ask me. Sure.
So 2 things on both of the issues that we just talked about. With the finance committee,
Yes.
the same,
I love that.
with the memo that's going to be sent with an SG with the instructions on how to submit a proposal, would you like that same email sent to the student body so it can be provided with the same information?
Definitely.
Okay, and then onto the election, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Would you like that information also sent to the student body so that the student body can have it for it as well?
Let's wait on that. Let me get enough Senate members to create a committee, and then we can talk about how we can solicit student opinions
About elections policy?
about the judicial register.
Did you for a second?
Yeah, I looked to you.
Yeah, sorry. So I sent out an email, I believe it was Friday night or Saturday, after the election, to Eric, to Jamie, to Noah, the chair of JSAP, to Sasha, to Dominic, to Gabe, to a bunch of people saying like, hey, like, we have all identified problems within the larger election system. We don't necessarily agree with what those problems are, but let's all sit down. And so, like I said, like, oh, Eric, you're in charge of the judicial board. Like, take a look at like hearings procedures, see like what went wrong just based off of the legislation. It was, I believe I said it in my email. If not, I said it to Jamie directly. I asked him to reach out to the campaigns to see, hey, like you guys were the ones who were held to these standards. What did you think about them?
If I'm not mistaken, he sent some kind of survey or something eval out actually. So, because I remember getting a copy of it.
I'm not aware of that.
He did do that.
I hope he did.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
campaign to submit.
Okay.
Now if they do it,
I remember him drafting it.
I remember getting an email about it.
So the point of
I
my
drafted it.
interruption, I guess, is it is my intention to liberalize elections policy so that an informational session is just that. It's informational. You don't have to go because the elections policy is so complicated and dense that you need to sit through an SG legal training. You shouldn't need a person who's going to law school to defend you before the judicial board, right? Like if you're interested in the SG, you should just be able to freaking run. So it is my, and the record better reflect. And so it is my hope that we are able to include student voices to say, okay, I don't understand why people aren't able to campaign in MGC. Let's talk about it.
So I think the larger thing here is that we have a lot of things that we feel like we need to accomplish and fix, but we all have very limited lifespans. You know, we're not canned goods; we don't last forever. And so KML's leaving in a month. I'm probably leaving in a month. A lot of senators tend to leave in a month. Some of them come back. We need to pass a budget, just register, elections. So we're probably not gonna get it all done. So maybe you guys should decide and prioritize amongst yourselves what you wish for.
Chris, let's talk about me.
Any more questions? Okay. And now we're gonna move to old business.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have one more.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So we've been
I like
talking
questions.
about like this method to questions. This is all related to calendar. So we've identified a few things. We have the budget. We have my elections overhaul is going to be 3 bills because it deals with 3 different documents. We have transition, so we have to vote on nominees, and we have 3 weeks to do it. Or no, we have 4 weeks, including today. So what else do we have on the horizon prior to May 1st? I guess. Or is that it?
Well, yeah, but the big things that we like absolutely have to do non-negotiable are pass a budget and confirm nominees. Everything else is extra, but if I'm thinking of like big legislative priorities on the horizon that senators have discussed or that are in the workings, I have an attendance policy revision, bylaw revision.
Well, that's that, isn't it?
Yeah, if we get it done. And then judicial register elections policy,
But like barring that, it's just
the usual stuff.
like that's what we're looking at barreling down until May.
Yeah, and usually we don't have a meeting the week before. We're gonna have a meeting on the 24th because I think that's the day that the breakfast was scheduled. Yeah, it's usually not the case. We don't usually go that late, but if that's the day breakfast was scheduled, then that's kind of has to be the transition meeting. So.
I'm sorry, you said the 24th?
Someone told me that transition was on the 24th. So yeah.
It is the 24th.
And then this is a question for Devontae, I guess, if you're cool with the president, and then Shannon. We were just talking about this, me and Dante. Do you guys imagine having any directors ready to appoint by the
17th.
17th instead of putting your entire, well, I don't
I
think
don't
you
think
need
that
any.
I'm that big of an issue. I only have 3 positions. I don't think I'm gonna have
And
them.
most of yours don't need to be confirmed.
I don't, yeah.
So just pay it.
Yeah, mine I need to be confirmed most likely here in July.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what you
starting-
said earlier.
I'm starting interviews tomorrow.
Good.
So we'll do it right.
So what I recommended to them is for all of the elect team to sit down and just, if you could send me a schedule, like as you have them ready, just try to split it up equally between the 17th and the 24th. So that would be like the best for everyone. That way your directors don't have to stay for like massively long meetings and senators don't. Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Any more questions? Okay. Old business, Bill 15-16-023, a bill to advocate for a comprehensive sexual assault program on campus. This bill was tabled in committee.
Yeah, I'd like to discharge it.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a motion to discharge it, and you have already talked to Shannon about this, just to let everyone know. So is there a second? Shannon?
Second.
Okay, is there any opposition to discharge?
Take it out of
Just-
committee.
So
Okay.
can I clarify the
Sure.
situation? So the bill was tabled in committee because it was just a lot of simple questions that like Gillette could have answered, but she was unable to make the meeting. So like the issue, like any issues with the bill will be answered.
Any opposition?
I'll object to that today.
Okay. So we'll move to a
Move to
vote.
immediately vote.
All those in favor of discharging the bill and discussing it now?
I move to vote by voice.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and we're gonna discharge it, and will you send me a copy of the change?
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you want to present it with Gillette? Since you're the committee chair and then Gillette, but you can head it up Gillette, because it's your bill, so.
I've said the thing that I need to say, which is that
Okay, so then you wanna present?
we didn't change.
Yeah, she's sending it to me right now,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you wanna go and start one.
Yeah, I will. That's cool. That's cool. So this is like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I met with Megan McCain and the Wellness Center, and I was just trying to see what could be done so we could have a comprehensive sexual health program on this campus. And she was just telling me about the current Wellness Center programs. They have the Wellness Crew, which is like a peer education group, and they offer sexual health education. But mainly it's pretty basic. It only talks about STIs and pregnancy prevention. It doesn't touch on sexuality, spirituality, emotional health, or gender identity, gender expression, etc. And it's 45 minutes, and they have a smaller section called like Sex Jeopardy, but it again is very basic, very surface level. Then they have their safer sex kits, and they offer insertive condoms and dental dams, but most info is only catered to heterosexual sex, and insertive condoms are non-latex. All this stuff is available for free, but if you would like to have insertive condoms, then you have to go in or you have to email. Like I know you know because you've been working on this for a long time. So it's like it's not cute. So we need better access, and we need better comprehensive sexual health programming on this campus. So what we were saying is like the barriers to creating something like this is just the length of time, or barriers to what they have already is just the length of time and the commitment. And they would like to break it down into smaller sections, like 15 to 20 minute sections. But in order to do that, they would like to include CDI, because CDI does talk about sexuality, spirituality, gender expression, gender identity, etc. So what I propose that we do is just to advocate for this collaboration to happen, because the Wellness Center is already on board and CDI is already on board to do it. But they think that having students kind of light that fire underneath them, it'll happen more likely. And then also to do like an awareness campaign, which shouldn't cost any money. I don't know why like that's even anything to think about. You're just making infographics and then showing what CDI and the Wellness Center are doing together, or what the Wellness Center is already doing, saying like, hey, we have these programs, go find it, go do it. Or saying, hey, we can come into your classroom, like don't don't cancel class campaign. So, hey, we can come into your classroom when you miss a day, and we can do this comprehensive sexual health education program that we've done with CDI and Wellness Center together. So that's background. If you have any questions for me, let me know. What's up?
You just mentioned don't cancel class. Could you expand on that?
So this was actually Megan's idea. So she was just saying how a lot of professors will sometimes cancel classes because they have to go to a conference or anything like that. And she was like, why cancel class when you can have the Wellness Center come in and teach a comprehensive sexual education program and make it mandatory? So then it's also like piggybacking off of Empower AU and just more things just to make sure people are aware and don't have the excuse to be ignorant to these issues and ignorant to these different things. Yeah, what's up? Sorry.
So first of all, this is great, and it's great that you're talking to Megan McCann, it's great that you're talking to CDI, they're the best people to work with for this issue. But because they are the best, it means there will be roadblocks ahead potentially, and it's sort of the same situation I was in first. This is great, this is wonderful, how can no one get on board with this? People will probably, somewhere down the road, like administration, will probably say, hold up, we should probably take another look at this. I know you're graduating, correct? So if this isn't like implemented straight off the bat, do you have any next steps that to keep this conversation going?
So again, this is just to advocate for this to happen. So it would definitely have to have next steps. And I don't think I mentioned this because I was just going so fast. This program, this collaborative program, is going to be building off of what they already have, the wellness group. So it would just be like
just adding on another.
Yeah, literally just adding on to the curriculum.
Okay.
And having CDI do it because they don't want to step on toes.
Right.
So it wouldn't even be new like frameworks, anything like that. It's just like we're gonna come in and fix this.
Okay.
And I definitely would want somebody to take this over just to make sure that we stay on there about it. So
No more questions?
Is
Yeah.
there anything after that?
No, this is the end.
yeah.
Do you see the comments part of the slide for the Secretary of Department, do you see that as a campaign to advocate for the changes, or after the changes are already made? Make it a next year to the new program is in place?
So as a whole, student government would be, or the Senate would be advocating for the changes. But this club is just for just like making it awareness around what changes have been made and then advocating for people to actually do it.
Any more questions?
Okay.
Said students can be involved in like the process. Is it just like senators or is like CBI reaching out to students? Maybe that's something like super picky that just having no
Yeah, I'm not sure what they would want to do. I know in the past when working with CDI and the Wellness Center, when you like advocate for them to do something, they prefer to like do it on their own and figure out how they, because it's just admin type of thing. So whatever they do, we just stay on it and be like vigilant. And again, if we're advocating for it, we can always ask for specific things to be done. So we should keep that in mind.
Okay, we'll move into debate. Any points of debate, Dante?
As I said earlier, I think this is great legislation. I think it's a great first step because, speaking from experience, we all need to get our ducks in a row and try to advocate for something before we start sending people in for meetings and sending people saying, hey, we should probably work on this. I'm really encouraged that you talked to CDI and Megan McCann. Who did you talk to in CDI?
I always talk to Matt.
Oh, yeah, he's great. He really is great. He's always open to conversations. So,
Yeah.
If there are no other points, I move to,
I'm not voting no.
okay.
I'm concerned is the wrong word. But I'm curious about, I guess, the marketing campaign, the awareness campaign. Because I think a few times the Senate has passed resolutions and legislation saying the secretary will do this, the secretary will do that. I don't know if it is a reflection of the secretary or a reflection of the Senate telling the secretary to do something. But sometimes like that doesn't happen. And I know like the Senate has its own marketing procedures. Have you spoken to, aside from like Chris's question, have you talked to any members of the Secretary's Department or Faith about this?
So we could always change it. I don't care as long as someone's responsible.
Something like that. Opposed? Any more points to debate? Done. Dan?
Motion to give this. Are you okay? Oh, no, okay, well, I thought we just told them. Okay.
Sorry, do you have a point?
I was going with, I don't know, like, we can certainly make it a priority to, when the Senate tells the Secretary of the Department to set their own processes for bills, going forward, we can certainly talk about reforming how we approach those things like this, so that we do accurately, like, effectively carry out what the Senate wants. And I know that's an issue for us this year, and that's for a number of reasons. I would say it's kind of, it was mostly probably our fault, but I would say that it's definitely something that I would like to prioritize moving forward. And work. So I would not be fearful of keeping the Secretary's Department in the bill, simply because I would make it a personal priority of mine.
Well, if there aren't any more comments, I was going to motion to go by hand.
Second. Yeah. All those in favor? All those opposed? By a vote of 14-0, the bill passes. Next up, we have Bill 1516-026, a bill to create a reports policy. Can you send me a copy of the documents?
I did, forward to, I'll send this one. I have to use the hashtag.
I didn't get it. To Senate or to government? Those are the ones who SG.
I see it.
Oh, where? 1102. That's it.
That was me. Thank you.
They Googled, usually Google Docs get all messed up, so.
Yeah, this is what I had. This is what I said.
You downloaded it. Oh, it's really short. What is this? Okay. Okay. Does the sponsor want to present this?
Sure. Should I go up or?
You can just stay there if you want to.
Okay, great. So, I've talked to a lot of people about this. Unfortunately, not everybody, so I apologize in advance for those who I've not reached out to yet about this legislation. But basically, it's not necessarily about how problematic officer reporting is. It's more so just another step in the right direction to improve meetings. And I think that we can increase transparency in our student government by knowing what officers are going to say before the meetings start. And what I mean by testimony is that you don't necessarily have to write anything new, right? If you have a PowerPoint, for example, if you just send that to Gabe before the meeting so that he could attach it to the agenda, then that's fine. That can still count as a testimony, right? So it's just like with the click of a button, that's how this legislation works. And I know that many people who do officer reports end up, doing PowerPoints. So I think that would be good. I just think it's a great way for senators to prepare questions before meetings, right? To know what officers are going to say. So, instead of just like on the spot thinking of questions, we have a good 1 to 2 days beforehand to think about really good questions to ask the officers. So yeah, there's that, the reports policy.
You can pick.
Yeah, President.
So it's not that I think this is a bad idea, I just think that this is tackling an issue that we don't really have at this point. I mean, it's been a struggle for me to convince directors to come into the report. Directors they take in their mind, and whether or not this is accurate is obviously up to debate, but in their mind, they take on a responsibility that is fully within the president's cabinet. And so to them, especially unpaid directors, coming in feels like it's their Sunday, they have their own things to do, and they don't have a relationship with senators, so they're like, why would I come into report anyway? So I don't know if
creating another barrier to reporting would really be effective, where like instead, like perhaps next year, there can be a better relationship between those individual directors and senators where they really want to come in and talk about stuff. Or like, I just don't know if like there's ever been an issue where someone's come in and been like, oh no, I wish I had better questions. Like mostly we're just surprised that people show up.
Yeah, no.
So I brought it up in committee, and I share a lot of Sasha's concerns. But we haven't seen Jake in months. And when he does come to present, he doesn't really know what's going on with the budget. Do you think that having a reporting officer write down a report and that being public would improve communications between the executive branch and the Senate, or the executive branch and the student body if these reports are public, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think both. I just think that the fact that we know what officers are going to say beforehand really makes all the difference. If I know an officer's intentions and what they want to say during a meeting, but a few days before the meeting, maybe I have something. Let's say if an officer comes to the meeting, they have a report for a new initiative that student government is working on, and we don't know what that initiative is until the report. Maybe if we have the testimony a day or two before that, we read the testimony and I think to myself, oh man, you know what? I have something that I could, help out with this officer. I think that's like one of the many different scenarios in which we can improve relations between officers and the Senate, in which we can improve relations between officers, the Senate, and the student body as well.
Thank you.
No problem. Dr.
I was gonna move into a period of debate.
Oh, I second that.
Alexis.
Yeah, so I voiced my concerns in committee as well. I think that this would deter directors to come speak to Senate. I also think that it'll, one of the points that was brought up before, I think by Devontae, was that it will deter students that want to report to or say anything, to Senate when they're working on advocacy. It will deter them as well. I think that it's also, as much as I would love for this to be real, I think that it's unrealistic. I think directors and executives, I honestly think they do their reports at 10 a.m. in the morning before they come to Senate, and I don't think that, that it's the number one priority on their list for the week. So I think that it's very unrealistic that we'll get comprehensive reports from these executives and directors so that we can deter questions from the floor. I also think that it's it could be very politically motivated, and that it would allow people more time to create questions that would attack people, which I don't think is a good atmosphere to, foster between the executives and Senate. I think that we need to better that relationship, not attack it.
So it's a great argument. Creating a new medium for politics, it's always a bad thing. Will, you have your hand up.
Yeah, a little
Words of age.
I'm sorry.
God, no,
I'm sorry, guys.
This is his one point. Let him have it. If he wants to take it now, let him take it.
Okay, so Will.
That's what I'm saying. No, you don't pick. No. That's what I was trying to say. I thought he was just responding to Alexis' point. I was going to let him take that
That was
point.
fun.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so remember, if y'all are going to repeat what the other person said, if you agree with what Lex said, it's probably not necessary to say it. So.
Okay, so this is not directly, it's sort of going off what Lex said, but it's a new sort of argument. It's a new argument.
Okay.
It's a better argument. Now you're making me preface it by saying what type of argument it is. Sorry.
A better one, evidently.
Okay, here's what I'm gonna say. As I brought up last week, I think though this is well intentioned, I think this doesn't really help members of the public understand what we're doing. And I know a lot of you are thinking, what members of the public? But that camera right over there, that connects us to members of the public. And the people behind that camera, if they are watching, they can't see our emails. They can't see our reports. They can't see, even if it's 6 sentences that a director sends us, they don't know what's going on. So if a director stands up there and says, I sent you a report, any questions? That doesn't help people that are just hey, I'm curious about what Sasha's going to say on Title IX this week. they're not really benefiting from watching. And I feel like we're sort of shifting our responsibilities as people to communicate. We should communicate to them first, theoretically. I know sort of internal communication is very important, but I think we have the capacity to talk to each other. We have, though sometimes we don't use it, we have the capacity to like walk over to 270 or walk over to 268 and say, hey, I heard you doing this. Let's talk about it a little bit. Also, I can argue that a lot of people probably immediately delete emails. They find useless. I find myself doing that sometimes. But I just think this is more red tape that isn't solved, that is trying to solve the issue that we don't have.
Devontae?
Yes, I think the goal of it to improve relations between Senate and the executive is one we should be working towards, but I don't think this is going to do that. I'm planning to vote against it because I think it does bureaucratize the process. And I'm not sure if this is brought up specifically, but it may have the indirect outcome of deterring directors from coming in to speak, and I don't want that to be the case. And so I just don't think it's going to work out how it's intended.
I never prepared from when I was. So like way back when, everyone who did come to report did present a written report. So this to me is not a revolutionary idea. It's actually bringing us back to what we used to do. And I always found that procedure very, very helpful for the reasons why Bill suggests, right? Like, I disagree with Lex's point that it helps you prepare to attack the director, but like sometimes I have legitimate questions, and if Sasha's presenting a 20-page student workers report in 5 minutes because like we're all trying to get out of here real quick, then I might not be able to think on my feet that quickly. So I think it helps. I don't necessarily know that mandating it is the way to go. In fact, I probably think that it is the way to go. I haven't decided how I'll vote, but I think written reports are extremely beneficial. To Dante's last point that that a director wouldn't be reporting, they would just be sending an email. I think and maybe I'm incorrect in assuming, but I would hope that these reports would become public, would be posted on the student government website, on the Senate Facebook page. That's probably over optimistic of me, but again, like back when, that is something that we used to do. And to close, there are reports conducted by executive directors that we don't hear from, right? So Aaliyah presented the diversity and inclusion report, and she hasn't come in to report. I don't need her to come and report because I read something. If I have questions, I can go to her. If I have questions, I can go to Sasha. And actually, I think that having a written report makes everything much more accessible, because I don't believe that people are sitting behind their screens watching a live stream of the Senate and aren't willing to sit through a 4-hour meeting to figure it out. I have a lot of opinions about the bill. I haven't decided how I'm going to vote.
Sasha and then Noah.
So I agree with Kevin's point that like written reports are beneficial, and that's the way largely I conducted the bulk of my advocacy this year. I'm pretty proud of that. It makes my relationships with administrators pretty easy because they know what's going to happen, and then I walk into a meeting and like we have a really formal debate about the content. It also means sometimes you don't need a formal debate. Like Rowan and I didn't read, I just sort of like dropped that, and then I got an email saying, hey, those things were included, and that was like a really cool way to do things. I don't think that this is what this bill is talking about. I think that formal reports are positive and they're like a good element of student government work. But like, I mean, like often I have like a red notebook that I like write all this stuff in, and I can like send everyone a screenshot or like a picture of my bullets for the meeting, but I don't consider that to be like a report on policy. Like me coming in to tell everyone that I did this week about the Title IX stuff, like I could spend a ton of time like writing a report on that process, or I could tell everyone how it went in 5 minutes. People could ask me questions, and I could spend the time that I would have spent writing that, having another meeting to further that process. So I think we need to kind of like divorce the idea of like formal advocacy reports and then like me telling everyone what I'm going to say on the floor of the Senate.
I just have a question for Kevin. Why did the old Senate get rid of reports?
I'll yield to this. So, and this is something I talked about in CRP. And I think this is just like a structural thing. So like most executives used to come from the Senate. And I think that had just been like a traditional thing. And I think over time, like especially throughout my last 4 years, the past 2 presidents hadn't served in the Senate. The next one has. But I think because those 2 presidents, and then Pat never paid attention to the Senate. But because I think that was the culture that, you know, you would be in Senate and you would learn how the organization works. And you learn a lot from those written reports. I think that just continued the tradition. But again, I don't necessarily think it's bad. Written reports never existed anywhere in the bylaws. That was just what had been done. And standard practice has changed since, but no one ever got rid of anything because there was never anything there to begin with, is I guess the best way to conceptualize that.
And then next was Lex. And then we'll go Dante. Dante Kevin.
I don't.
Okay, Dante Kevin. Yes. Small one. Again, I think like I'm still undecided, so but one of the things that is really helping me think, or is really challenging me, is like, we haven't seen Jake in months. I'm on the finance committee. I should know how much every single thing costs. Like, we should get unredacted versions of everything. We don't. The last time we got an email was in December. December 1st was the last time I saw anything unredacted. And him coming in to report and saying, this is how much money we have, would be really beneficial. We passed 2 bills over the past 2 weeks, emergency reallocating funds that after talking to Jack, we didn't need to do. Because apparently he had enough money, he didn't have enough money, he wasn't sure, Jake didn't know what he was doing. I think Jake clearly doesn't want to come. Him submitting a report would be helpful. Things to think about. Okay, Lex and what?
Okay.
She had her hand up and she wrote a point, she remembered it. Okay. And then
How many points do I have though?
2. Okay, fine. Will and Lex.
Lex, go ahead. It's recorded.
Really?
I do not hear at all.
I was just gonna say that it's also the fact that like we have sat in this room and debated bills that senators have not read until we're ready to debate.
Correct.
So the fact that senators don't even read the bills that other senators write, most of the time, I highly doubt that senators are going to read the bills, the agenda, and the reports that all the directors and executives send in as well. That's just my point.
Yeah, on that point, like,
Realistically.
I think what I would say to Kevin's point too, because I'm really in the middle of the road on what to do with this bill, I think it is terrifying how little concern Jake's putting into his job right now when he is responsible for so much student money and he very rarely shows up. And when he does, he's very ill prepared. I don't think we can fix that behavior with the bill. That's the issue. So like, we have already passed bills that require all paid directors to report here at least once a semester, if not more, and they just don't. And like, those are our, if we can't even, like I said, we senators don't read the bill sometimes. If we can't even follow our own laws, if paid directors won't follow the laws that we pass, I don't see them following this one. And I think it's a great idea. I just think that we need some sort of shift in the way we treat and respect one another that cannot be legislated for.
Noah, Sasha, Deputy Chief of Staff, does she, she's probably needs to be connected.
And Brent, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
I truly share the same concerns that Lex and Will, especially Will, in regard to the culture of communications between different branches of government. And I really believe that if we at least pass this legislation, we would at least be trying something. We would at least be trying to alter the culture of, becoming better at programming and communicating with one another. And there's really no negative impact of passing this legislation. Like I said before, you could just send in a PowerPoint or like, you know, even like a picture of like your notepad, and like that could be considered as like a testimony. Like, I just think it's very beneficial to at least try. And like I said before, it's a neutral impact, not a negative one. There's nothing that's like going, that's really detrimental that's going.
Okay, so Sasha then.
I really have to agree with Bill's point that like I don't think this addresses the concern that's expressed, especially about the comptroller reporting. If people were really concerned about comptroller reporting, they would compel them to report. And that hasn't happened. So like I understand the concern, but I just don't think that like this also doesn't compel you to report and then when you report give something formal in 2 days in advance. This just says that when you report, you have to do something. So I think that the better thing to address is like how often people report, who needs to report, and then we can start talking about like rules and red tape, if you want to call it that, around that process. If you really miss Jake, you should do something to create that. That's all I say.
Okay, and then my question is just like, how will this be enforced if they don't do it? Like, I'm just curious to know, like, what are the repercussions for officers not reporting?
You won't report.
But then who does that?
But then who does that?
That
What's the
hurts
problem
the
with
Senate,
that? Yeah.
because then we don't know what they're doing, so I'm not talking to you.
I'm just,
What do you mean, who does that hurt?
like, I was curious, like, what happens when this doesn't get enforced, like the Senate doesn't, like, can they still come in and report, or because they don't send in a free mechanism of reporting, then they don't get to report in Senate? Like, I'm confused on how that's gonna work, because if they don't send you the pre-report, but then they say, hey, Gabe, I wanna come in and report, is he gonna be like, no, because you didn't send something earlier? Or just curious on how that whole thing works. Like, are they not gonna report at all? Or is it just you don't send in the pre-report, like, oh well? I don't know, I'm just curious on how that's
For sure.
work.
Could I,
Move to suspend to get rid of speaking of others. She could just.
It's ready to respond in a second.
She has to, okay, go ahead.
yeah, so, you know, the intention of the legislation is to not have for officers who do not send a testimony, to not report, just because, you know, I understand that an officer spends a lot of time working on the report, but at the same time, we also give our time by being here at the meeting and wanting to know what that report entails of. And so that's what would happen, just for an officer to not report at meeting if they don't send a testimony.
Dante, Eric, Shannon.
So in regards to Kevin's point about Jake, as I said a moment ago, you have the capacity to walk over there and talk to Jake. I understand that you don't like Jake, but okay, pardon me. I retract that. I understand that you do not like some of the things that Jake is doing with his job. You have the capacity to schedule a meeting with him and sit down with him and ask him these questions.
See my emails?
He does not answer emails
I have
because
15 emails out to
I've been
Jake that he hasn't
CC'd
answered.
on many emails from other senators and directors that have tried to talk to him that he is not interested.
Do you really think that, my final point is, do you really think mandating someone similar to Jake's temperament will actually like, make him come and talk to us? It's another barrier in my point of view to like having him come and talk to us. I'd rather someone like that just stand up here and say, oh, I have something I need to say, instead of, like, even if it's like once a month, if they come and talk to us a little bit, it's better than just like having to like write a memo, and no matter how brief it is, and submit it. I think it's just another barrier we don't need.
So my only point was to Senator Levy's point on like what constitutes testimony. That's fine what he thinks that word means, but testimony generally refers to something that's either a sworn statement or something that's fully written out. So, I mean, I don't care whether, PowerPoints or whatever constitute testimony, but I think that it would be important to include that in the legislation itself, not just assume that it's included, and then if this passes 3 years down the line, someone saying, hey, you sent 2 bullet points, that's not written testimony. Or someone subverts this rule by submitting 2 bullet points and saying that's written testimony.
Shannon.
I guess kind of going off, especially like with the first whereas clause, like the purpose of this is to not only engage in discussion, but also to cut down, because I understand that like you know, it's take like a long time to reports, and I like get that that's hard and like sometimes a little frustrating, but at the same time, like I really appreciate the work that people are putting in, so like I want to hear about it. I think that like we as a group, like a collective group, has done a really good job of recognizing when we have a lot of bills that are up, and then giving time limits for that. I think we've done that many times this semester, and it's worked out pretty well. I think that we have to remember that we have applicability as well, and that like I also just think that this bill in general kind of has like a lot of gaping. There's some holes in it that I think need to be addressed that aren't. And I think that if we really do want people to send in full testimony, like full reports or whatever, we can just highly encourage it. We don't need to mandate it.
I just want to amend it to say report, because I think that is important.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I move to amend the final, or well, both of the enactory clauses, just in case it does pass, to read, therefore be it enacted, that's something that we also have to do. Therefore be it enacted, because remember we changed this from a resolution, that officers.
Can it just be?
Well, no, because it's not written. Sorry. Fine, whatever. That it is mandatory for officers to send a written report
Or PowerPoint.
or
presentation.
To the undergraduate senate so that to the undergraduate senate. Yeah, remember, you guys, this is legislation. But sure. That's my question.
Okay, and you want me to change this one?
Yes, that the officer's written report. And then at that point, I believe, in my judicial opinion, that it's up to the discretion of the individual officer to determine what a report is. Because report doesn't appear in documents.
Okay, is there a second? There's 3 parts. First, the enacting, and then the changing of the sentence, and then the changing of the sentence.
And then
there's a second.
Therefore, be approved.
That's what I said. You said that.
Yeah.
I just said that. Okay, yeah.
So I mean, I believe that, I definitely apologize for not reaching out to the entire student government before I proposed this. And I believe that it would be of the best interest of SG in its entirety if maybe we don't vote on this bill today and then we just work on it throughout the rest of the time we have this semester.
Let's unpackage this amendment first.
Okay.
And then let's maybe do that.
Is there any debate on this?
I second Kevin's amendment.
Is there any debate on this amendment?
By voice.
By unanimous, okay.
By voice.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the amendment passes.
Me.
Now what do you guys want to do?
Can we vote?
Shh.
Okay, someone has to make a decision.
Out of deference to Noah, I disagree with it, but I will move the table for a period of a week. I'll be voting against the motion to
Table
table.
to committee or table in full
Within full Senate.
No.
I object.
Well, because you want to do it.
I object.
So I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I think Noah's going to make the second.
Noah, are you gonna second what he wants here?
Yeah.
I object.
Okay, so now
Lex,
we're
just do a
open
hot
to
done vote.
debate.
Yeah.
So now we're open to debate on whether to table it or not.
I motion to vote back in.
Second.
All those in favor of table, raise your hand. Okay, I have 4. All those opposed? And I have none. So we're still on debate on the bill.
Mr. Speaker, I move to vote by hand on the legislation.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the legislation?
Can we do roll?
Yeah.
Why?
Just
Just
the
kidding.
worst.
I'm okay.
I'm just wondering what I'm not entirely sure how I'm gonna vote. Oh, so you want to take the pulse of the room? I do.
Okay, here we go. Valentina.
No.
Noah.
I vote yes.
Bea.
No.
Janet.
No.
Devontae.
No.
Dante.
Nah. I move to dispense with the reading of the roll and vote by voice.
No, you can't. What?
Okay.
It's not personal.
I wanted to see if it was like just me and Noah.
Kevin.
Yes.
Will.
I abstain.
Alexis.
No.
Chris. Chris Pearl. Chris Descent is not in the room.
I never like people on my first. Anyway, yeah.
Sam.
I abstain.
George. Nope. Christina. Barbara.
Abstain.
By a vote of 2 to 10 to 3 abstentions, the bill fails. Got that? Did you get the roll calls? That's 2 to 10. I just counted the no's.
Yeah, I know.
1,
Also count.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Valentina, Bayette, Shannon, Devontae, Dante, Gillette, Alexis, Chris, George. I got it. So that was right. Okay. Fifteen 16-025. A bill to uncoke AU. Can
That's
you
not
send me?
good title.
Okay, can you send, you say that's the kind of stuff you have to send me an email as the committee chair? Yeah.
It's not gonna be.
I'm grateful for the official issue report.
Literally don't care.
Right now, it's.
Oh.
It was just sent to all your email. Just doing my job as chair.
Okay, that's already in there. So this is a piece of legislation that I've been working on for a while with 2 people from Uncoke AU, Duncan and Brooke. They're both seniors, and this is something that they were hoping to sort of like leave as sort of a final thing that they're doing with their organization and pass it on to other people in their organization in the Senate. To make some progress on. So let me just give you a rundown of the problem, and then I'll explain to you how I think this legislation provides a pretty moderate solution to it. So we've talked about this before. Duncan came in at the first meeting of the Senate this semester to talk about it, but currently American University kind of has a sort of vague, unqualified process for how the individual schools and deans can accept gifts and scholarships, and what those gifts, how those gifts impact course curriculum taught at AU. So the concern is, and what sort of is already happening, at least in some classes, is that outside organizations that have a political leaning can offer to sort of endow a scholar or a professor or a scholarship, or offer a gift or something, with the condition that
the curriculum that professor teaches or is taught in that class is altered to meet sort of the goals or the political ideology of the group that's offering the gift. And so for me personally, I think that's concerning, not necessarily because I'm against that practice altogether, but because I think it would be a good thing if students had more information about which classes might be influenced by those outside donations than they do right now, which is zero. And so other universities like Western Carolina University have practices in place that empower faculty to review these gifts before they're accepted by any of the constituent schools at a university. And so Duncan has been doing a lot of work with the Faculty Senate to talk about their position on this, to see what faculty would like from this. We have a Tuesday meeting with Larry Engel, who's the chair of the Faculty Senate right now, to talk about sort of their wants and needs. This bill has been passed through them. I can't say that they support it, but they sort of gave their blessing for us to move forward with this formula to fix the problem. So what the resolve clauses propose it's two things. One, that a review process for these gifts is established so that there is some procedure in place to try to make sure that students are at least given information about how these gifts could impact their course curriculum, or that gifts could be denied if we thought that they would place an undue burden on a professor and their ability to teach objectively and fairly in a way that sort of provides AU students with a holistic and beneficial educational experience. And then the second, therefore, clause is sort of the vehicle for which that review process will be created. And so what we're proposing is a student-faculty joint sort of working group that would come up with a list of, do you get inducted or whatever?
Yeah, can you tell them my update?
Congrats! So anyways, we're not proposing that we create the review process. We're not saying that the university has to do this review process. Really, the actionable portion of this legislation is just the creation of a student-faculty committee that would provide a list of recommendations, hopefully for the provost office to take up in the creation of this actual review process. Questions? Yes, Kevin.
So will this prohibit donations from an environmentalist to endow professorship to teach in pro-environmental policy?
I don't think this would prohibit anything. It's hard because it's a hypothetical question, so I can't answer yes or no. What I know that a long-term goal of this bill would be is to create a review process so a gift like that could be denied, but I don't know why it would be necessarily.
So is it then my understanding that your take, or the take of the Uncoke AU or Uncoke on Campus group, is to ban the contributions of the Charles Koch Institute?
No, I think that might be and I don't want to speak for either Brooke or Duncan, I think that might be their personal opinion, but the Uncoke AU, and that's why we changed the name of the bill. I was never going to be called the Uncoke AU bill, and I think that sometimes they feel like a little chained down by the name they chose for their organization. It's not to create this review committee so that every gift the Koch Foundation has given is ripped away. And I don't think that this review committee would have the purview to do that because that's all in the past. It's really to, in the future, when any organization that has a political ideology is giving gifts to the university that could result in a change of top curriculum, that faculty would be empowered to have a review committee to look through those gifts before they're officiated.
Sasha spoke a few months ago when we had the first presentation about the Russian literature department. And I know that we have a Department of Islamic Studies with one professor who is the chair.
Yeah.
Both of these are endowed departments.
Yeah.
That doesn't have a political ideology. It's about a specific subject matter, but a donation informs what is to be taught. Without the donation, nothing would be taught. So would this prevent donations like that?
No, again, I think those are examples of great gifts that I have 100% confidence in saying that this hypothetical review committee would confirm. Again, this committee doesn't exist to stop all donations. It exists to be sort of a catch-all in the event that something not as positive as the creation of the Russian Lit endowed program would come into existence.
One more question.
Yeah.
Who would sit on this committee? Because my imagination is if it's all the people who wanna, on CoPAU, we're gonna ban libertarian link donations, but not environmental
Yeah.
donations. So,
I would say, you mean who's gonna sit in the faculty review committee?
I thought it was a joint faculty student committee.
Oh, so this down, so I just wanna be clear, this joint committee that we're creating is to come up with a list of recommendations to hopefully inform university policy and the creation of a review process. So I would say you should join the committee if you want to make it as balanced and fair as possible. That's gonna be open to everyone. So, but then the review process would be, the decision, the recommendations we're gonna make is to create a review process that would be very like apolitical. Any other questions? Cool.
So I have a few, actually, just two more questions.
Yeah.
They're real quick.
Okay.
What is CKF and AAUP?
CKF is the Charles Koch Foundation, AAUP is the American Association of University Professors.
Okay, thanks. So, okay, debate. I thought we depoliticized this, but apparently the Koch Foundation is in here and violates academic freedom, faculty governance, and academic integrity. I have a lot of problems with this. I think we're aiming to prevent donations to the university on politics. I think the people who would sit on this committee on both the faculty and the student side would be biased against certain donations. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, we go to a school that teaches different things. And it's unsurprising that a committee would end up like that. It's just my fear that a committee that ends up like that would inform bad policy to the university. I think if we are okay with environmental donations, which I brought this up in committee on Thursday, but we're not okay with libertarian donations, I'm worried about when we start getting away from, pro-Jewish chairs, and then we start being okay with pro-atheist chairs, right? Like, I think like we're starting to police ideology on campus, which, like, I think it's your business as a student to challenge the curriculum and to challenge your professors. But I think this is leading us to a very nerve-wracking place for me where certain ideologies on campus are allowed and welcome, but others are banned at the door. I heard you vote no.
Dante.
Shockingly. I agree with Kevin on this one. Maybe this is just a small-minded view, but I don't think a professor would take a donation from the Charles Koch Foundation or from a pro-environmentalist foundation if they didn't agree with it. So they were probably going to teach that stuff anyway. It's just a matter of where they're getting funding to do research. And Charles Koch Foundation wants to help fund a professor. I think that's perfectly reasonable. They're not the evil mastermind. No, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. I just think that putting labels on professors by saying, like, please note, this professor gets funded by this group is probably a bad precedent to set, and that could, maybe I'm thinking on too big a level, but could cripple this professor's or an individual professor's ability to like teach objectively and to students, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people on this campus would automatically disqualify a professor if they're funded by Charles or David Koch.
Devontae and then Christina.
So I agree with Senator Levy's points, but what I think Shannon brought up in committee was that we're not necessarily saying that either ideology is right or wrong. We're allowing these conversations to be had on an administrative level to determine, if policies will affect us or not. And so I don't know if voting yes on this will say that we're saying certain ideologies are right or wrong, but we're just allowing them to further explore this within the university. And so I think it's worth it to pursue it and see where it goes, I think.
Christian.
Yeah, I agree with Devontae. I mean, this says that you're just recommending specific changes. You don't, as a student, you don't have the power, and this bill would not give this committee the power to, decide which ideology we let in or we don't. It's just a conversation, and I think that conversations are important. Like, you know, like I was looking into the nameplate in the SIS atrium, and I talked to Kevin about this, and it was the Prince of Bari that donated $3 million to the SIS atrium so that it could be built. And I mean, like, I'm an SIS student. If you know what's going on in Bahrain, a lot of the professors in SIS, I don't think they agree with what's going on. That doesn't mean that just I don't know, like just because it's there doesn't mean that they agree with it. But like it's troubling to me that we're sitting in a room, that we're sitting in a building that does have these donations. I didn't know about this, so when I researched it, I found an article in Al Jazeera that was like the dean of SIS was like, well, students haven't even said anything about it. Like students don't care. Why would we ever change the name? And I think that this bill, like, gives students a chance to be, first of all, be informed, and then second of all, like, give your opinions. Like, I don't know what other outlet I would have besides like going to the Eagle about writing. I don't know, like what other outlet do I have to talk about or to know about which donations are coming in from any political whatever.
Will, Shannon, Kevin.
Yeah, I think what I would say is in addition to my personal belief that there is an inherent benefit in being able to stop a gift that would, I think, negatively impact curriculum or would say something about who we are as an institution for accepting a gift. I think there's also benefit just in the review process itself, because like Christina said, that provides what is currently non-existent in a forum to have a discussion about where our money is coming from, and it encourages a greater level of transparency so we know where our money is coming from. So even if the hypothetical review process makes a decision that I personally disagree with, at least I know the grounds for the decision that they made, and I know where that money is coming from, whereas I previously, in many instances, would not have been able to access that information. So I think the review process in itself, regardless of the decisions that are made, is uniquely beneficial.
Also, I just kind of wanted to share, because I've been interacting with like Duncan throughout this process. He was talking to me about how like he presented like his ideas from like to the faculty senate, and they were like very like, I'm not saying they weren't supportive, but they're highly critical, and I think that's important to know too. Like this isn't a group. I don't think this is going to become like a group of people that are just affirming each other's ideas. I think it's going to be a group of people that are challenging ideas and kind of coming up with the best kind of policy. Because he said that it was like a really tough, like he went in there and like was talking to them. It was difficult to have the conversation, but like they got a lot done within the conversation. And I also want to note that like, sure, I think it's important that it's a joint student and faculty-led task force, because the faculty that we're interacting with is like are funded by like these programs. So like they're going to be like, I find the faculty senate to be really, they stress academic freedom, but also at the same time they're being funded by like things like this. So like it's important to note that like them coming, like they have like a good idea of like what the best policy would be, and students could
So I'm glad that Christina brought up the SIS building, because we did talk about that. And I also disagree with renaming the SIS atrium. It cost $3 million to build it, and if we're gonna say no, we don't want your oil money, that's another $3 million we have to raise off the backs of the students. There are times I think where we have to grit our teeth and say we need the money because our endowment is shit, and we are primarily a tuition-funded institution. And I think it's unfortunate, but that is where the money comes from. Additionally, I think we're going into a budget year, and working with the Office of Long-Term Development, that they're the ones who get these donations. And I think we're trying to say, hey, raise a lot of money, but you can't raise it from here. I think it complicates our relationship with the administration on the fiduciary level. We really, really need their cooperation next year. That's something that Devontae and Shannon will both be working with extensively. So it seems like they're both in favor of this. I don't know how much that argument sticks. But I think my final point is, I am concerned again that I don't believe that this is going to be an impartial committee. I think people who apply to join the donation review endowment donation, I don't know what we're gonna call it, but I think it's gonna be a bunch of sociology professors and anthropology students and people who are super concerned about these super political issues. And I'm scared that we're gonna ban Republican donations, but be totally cool with Democratic donations. And I'm Democrat, blue-blooded, just like most people in the room. But I think we're getting into real dangerous territory. And my final point, my PS. This is not an apolitical bill. We're citing the Charles Koch Foundation and saying that it violates academic freedom. Therefore, it should be banned, right? So like, we shouldn't kid ourselves. This is a political bill. It has a political goal. It's going to ban the Charles Koch Foundation or the Charles Echoes Institute from donating to the university. And if we're going to pass it, let's at least be honest about what we're passing.
I'll move to amend the whereas clause.
This one.
Yes, I move to strike it.
A second. Third. Any debate?
I object. I don't.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. Do you want to debate it or just go?
The reason why, well, let me make if I'm allowed to make a comment.
You are, it's debate, yeah.
The reason why I object is twofold. One, from a political nature, I don't think the people in the room who we will make feel more comfortable by removing this whereas clause. Like if this whereas clause goes away, you're probably not going to suddenly vote for the bill. So I don't see a whole lot of point from a voting standpoint, but on like a principle standpoint, I don't think we're being disingenuous by including that whereas clause, something that I personally believe that the Charles Koch Foundation does do. I do think they try to unfairly influence the curriculum at universities, and while also saying that the purpose of this review process would be apolitical, because this does not, would not in any hypothetical scenario ban the Charles Koch Foundation from making donations to this university. It would create a review process, whereas on a case-by-case basis, a donation that they may make would be banned on an individual level. So I don't think it's disingenuous to say that the review process would be apolitical and fair, but also to use the opportunity of Senate legislation in a whereas clause to be honest and call the Charles Koch Foundation as what it is, an institution that is trying to influence the curriculum that students are receiving. That's all I'm gonna say.
Again, I think we're trying to say, because I asked during debate or during questions, what's getting banned, and this didn't come up. Apparently, this is violating academic freedom. And if I would assume, if the goal of this committee is to create a policy that would ban donations that violate academic freedom, logically, any donation from the Koch Foundation would be banned. I'm scared Zionists is going to get banned from donating money to the university because they support Israel. Right? Like, this has a process. We're going down a road. Let's be aware of that. Getting rid of this, I'll still vote against the bill, but I'd rather pass a good bill voting against it than pass a bad bill just because I was bitter. So I'd rather be with a bill that I voted against rather than infuriated.
Devontae, Dante,
I know for me, getting rid of this whereas clause would incline me to vote for the bill. I think the bill has non-partisan intentions, but this whereas clause has partisan implications is the issue. I have like my own feelings about the Charles Koch Foundation. Fun fact, I used to be a Koch scholar, not a Koch scholar, but like a Charles Koch scholar. Dropped the program for several reasons. But I just think that if it has non-partisan intentions and goals, we should focus on that rather than the partisan implications that something like this would induce.
Move to vote by hand.
Second.
Any objection? Okay, all those in favor of striking? All those opposed? By a vote of 7-2, the amendment is not. Okay, we're back to debate. Noah.
So I just wanted to question Mr. Levy's click onto that, point about the whole committee not being like unbiased. How, first and foremost, how could we make sure that the committee would be unbiased? And secondly, what's the reasoning behind that the committee would most likely be unbiased?
I don't know procedurally how we're gonna do this, but I'll move for an informal caucus between myself and the other senator.
No, I'll just give
To
my
answer the
point.
question.
I'll just give him my point.
I think I have a second point. And I'm just gonna start talking. So, you know, in all honesty, I don't think it is possible to create a completely unbiased committee. The reason for that is because I think in order to join the committee, you're gonna have to apply. Who are gonna be the people inclined to apply? The people who feel so passionately about academic freedom. Or, in all honesty, to ban the Koch brothers from donating to the university. So I think you're gonna have a lot of selective bias. I don't know if that's the right word. Voluntary bias, just by the people who want to join the committee. Absolutely, Will is correct. This is something that I would look into joining myself. But I don't think I'm going to be able to. I'll be an alumni, but not donating a substantial amount of money to the university to get a place on this committee for 50 years. But that was your second point. The first one was?
My first one was, how could we make it like less biased, because there's going to be bias in everything. And my second question was, why do you think, you just answered my second.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Maya, Monte.
So my opinion has changed a lot over the course of this conversation, much more than I thought it would. But I'm still going to vote in favor of this just because I believe that this conversation could be beneficial. As it exists at the time, I would look favorably upon when this committee is placed together that there is sort of very distinct boundaries in which conversation occurs and what they're going to recommend. But that's kind of a later step. So personally, I would vote in favor of this just because I think it is a step in the right direction. And then all of the issues that have been brought up within this discussion could later on be ironed out in the creation of that task force.
So I had said Dante already, and then Christina and Kevin.
I move to vote on legislation by hearing.
I'm going to object. I haven't met him.
Oh.
You'll like it.
You're up.
Christina.
I got a question. So right now, who decides? Like, so let's say like I just want to donate some. So what's the process? Who decides that?
I can actually answer that. I've been through the process before. You can go to the website and you can just donate. But if it's a major gift, which these gifts are usually major, you get assigned someone in the Office of Alumni Donor Relations, and usually it's the same person because we are, we try to keep our staffing lean here at American University to save money. And you sit down with the person or you have a phone call with them to discuss the details of your donation and where you'd like it to go. If you don't have ideas, they offer some suggestions on strategic projects you're pursuing. If you have very strict ideas, then you can offer those and then they review it. But obviously, the donor relations. The person that I presume, the person that I presume would do it for major gifts is Lee Holstock. Her name is Lee Holstock.
What? Can I answer this from the grant writing perspective? Because that's a very different process. Because this is from a foundation and not a.
Yeah, it's the same process. Yeah. You can answer it from the foundation's process. I'm answering it from the university side.
No. I'm saying, so if you were a university professor and you want to do a research project, you usually have to go out and apply to tons of different organizations because grant money is very limited. If you're in the sciences, there's a little bit more support from the federal government, but generally speaking, you're going to be working with private foundations, and you have to work through what could be a months-long process to get the donation.
Yeah.
And then once it comes back, then the university has to go through, and under this, they would theoretically have to approve every donation that a professor wanted in order to get a research grant, which could add.
I thought this was
tons
about
of
professorships though.
It's unclear.
So is this about professorships or research grants? Because there are two very different things. Professorships are usually pursued by the foundation and the university, and then the professor is hired after. So that would be a professorship then.
Not necessarily. Okay.
So is this about professorships or research grants?
This is, regardless of those two things, a gift would only be under review if it necessitates a curriculum change.
So that's a research grant, very frequent. Like that's what's happening
I
in the
think
US.
Sasha had a comment.
Yeah, so I think something that we're missing here is that alumni donor relations has been working exceptionally hard to solicit a large number of major gifts over the last few years. Because our institution is 94% funded by tuition, it gave us a problem in our middle states of pre-accreditation process 3 or 4 years ago now, because it means that we're honestly not fulfilling our fiduciary responsibility to have a diverse base of funding. So the university itself has been soliciting donations that they believe will be benefiting students.
Yeah.
It's not like evil Emperor Charles Koch would show up on our doorstep and say, "Hello, I have $7 million. Do you want them?" The university has a very specific list of targeted people who they believe will positively influence our values and they believe they can get money from. AU isn't the place that most people think of to donate to, which is why over the last year or so, there have been a lot of donations to GW and Georgetown, and AU's been really bitter about it because those were donations that we were also seeking. So I don't I have a lot of feelings on this bill that I don't have time to express today, but I think that this is misrepresenting the alumni donation office by assuming that people are showing up trying to influence our curriculum.
Not to mention a 2% increase in gifts to the university could be the equivalent of not having a 2% tuition increase.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, Christina, Kevin, what?
Okay, so I did not work with Will on this bill. I understand what you're saying. I don't think this bill is trying to stop anyone from a certain idea, whatever, to come and donate. It's common sense. We need money. We're not gonna say no to money. It's hard, but people do show up with millions of dollars and are saying put my name on this building and I'll give you $3 million. It's not something that's ridiculous. It happens. Bender used to be called something different because a Saudi arms dealer donated $5 million to build Bender, and then when he became bankrupt, he defaulted, but whatever. So but it's these things do happen. And I think that it's not. I don't want to discredit that association or that. It's the department. Yeah, the department, but I think a conversation is important, and I think that this is also is us.
I think I said Kevin next. Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah.
I think I used up my 2 things, but
Everyone has. I'd like to laugh, so that's fine.
The Charles Koch Foundation has donated $40,000 to the university foundations. I have a motion. I move to amend the final electoral clause. This is more to Noah's point, that the American University Student Government assemble a joint student government and faculty senate-led task force. I think that's going to be something to ensure I think transparency is the wrong word, but
bipartisanship.
I think bipartisanship is also. Just so people understand the point.
I think it's friendly. I'm really comfortable with it.
So that's
a joint student government and faculty senate, yes.
And is there any debate?
I motion to vote by unanimous consent.
Second.
Any opposition? Okay.
Third.
Dante.
Move, vote on the bill by hand.
I second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of legislation as amended? All those opposed? By a vote of 12-2, the legislation passes. Okay, thank you, 12-3.
I'm not the only.
Why were you raising your hand? I'm not raising my hand. I'm raising my hands in disgust.
12-3. Okay. Bill. Fifteen sixteen zero two. Bill 1516-027, a bill to establish firms and attendance policy. Can you send me the copy that you amended that with those amendments?
Yeah, I'll send you a copy of the thing. Hey guys, I'm gonna go through this as quickly as possible. I won't take my usual melody, take as long as possible to explain things.
I also sent this.
Hey Lex, do you have the new copy of it?
Oh, we didn't do a new copy because it wasn't in my plate.
Oh, that's right. Okay, it's probably.
Yeah,
Don't worry, Gabe, I'm sending.
Gabe didn't take notes on it, I don't think so.
No, he was making amendments on his computer.
Yeah, I made amendments, they were all passed. They gave to your speaker or Gabriel?
I just sent it. It's,
Actually, they could both go to same.
look, there it is. Oh,
But no, with the changes.
yeah, it's on Google. Changed it, so. No matter who has it. Woo.
Hey guys, this is gonna take, I promise you, I'm not gonna read the whole bill.
Okay, go ahead, Noah.
Okay, great. So the status quo does not have a distinction between excused and unexcused absences, so this bill aims to fix that. For one, the new text of this bill has a distinction, furthermore also has definitions of what an excused and unexcused absence consists of. Two, it has no cap on the amount of excused absences that you can have because, you know, we represent the student body in its entirety, not career politicians. We have a lot of other things to do. And, you know, like for example, technically speaking, if I miss next week's meeting, I'm going, you know, the speaker's supposed to suspend me if this bill doesn't get passed. And I have a very good excuse to miss next week's meeting. I'm going to a national research symposium. So I would be suspended if a policy like this one did not get passed. Three, so I did put a lot of power into the speaker's hands in this bill, but I excluded that power by adding a checks and balances part of the clause where it would state that if any senator disagrees with the speaker's opinion of what an excused or unexcused absence is, they could challenge it. And then the vote would go to the Committee on Rules and Privileges and would have to pass with a 2/3 majority in order to make that change, you know, a permanent one. So yeah, any questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Lee.
What do you think the consequences would be of, and not like legal consequences, but like what would happen if someone were to proxy their way through an entire Senate session?
To proxy their way through an entire Senate session? Well, I did say that there's no limit on proxy absences. So, I mean, I guess you could say that there's that. That would just be considered as a proxy absence. Are they mutually exclusive, an excused and proxy absence? No, not necessarily, because for one, you're not at Senate, and for two, you also have a proxy there. So that would be both an excused absence and a proxy absence.
I'm sorry, I don't think you entirely understand my question. So like, what if I just never showed up, but constantly sent Alex Bradley to proxy for him? Like, I was elected with 70 votes, not him.
Well, you have a great reason to show up, and if the Senate believes that you have a great reason too, because philosophically speaking, the speaker does state that could decide whether your absence is excused or not. But let's say if he or she at the time does, right? Say that it's excused, and the Senate does not do anything about it to challenge that excused absence, then that just means that you're doing a really good job at being involved in American University. Mr. Bucci.
How long have you known that you were going to go to this research conference?
How long have I known? I was accepted about 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah. But thank you for being interested.
No, I'm actually
very interested. Thank you. I'll
I
talk
guess
to you more about it later.
I guess I'm going to ask the follow-up to Dante's logical question. Will you have a proxy next week?
Will I have a proxy next week? I'm working on getting one.
I think that's. I do have another question, actual question.
Yes.
So a lot of this is up to the discretion of the speaker. Never mind, this is debate.
Okay, motion.
Yeah, we'll
to move to debate.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, if there's no more questions, yeah, don't say.
Okay, so I think, I don't want to go Kevin Sunday here, but as someone who sort of spoke against.
Why is Nick wealthy on this bill right now? Why is Austin Morgan on this bill? Who sent this to the entire SG?
We're just really curious.
Sam Showman was on there.
Sorry.
Chatham. We all Chatham.
Oh, yeah, they might be watching. I'll go on. So,
We have one
viewer.
It's you.
I'm gonna do say one viewer.
Okay, so.
Nick, roll it back.
All right, so I've got a couple points. The first of which, I think we all decided a little earlier in the session that the power of the speaker should be as minimal as possible, and I think this gives the speaker a lot of power. As someone who is keeping the speaker's power as small as possible, I think leaving it up to interpretation of the speaker is sort of going down a rabbit hole, even though like CRP or COA would theoretically review an excused absence. One, I think there's a lot of red tape, but okay.
This counts as debate, so if you're not.
Also, I'd like to, like, we have an attendance policy. We have the ability to use proxies. Like, I don't know, like, anyone's level of commitment to this.
I
but,
know, I
like,
have to find a way to get this.
Guys, come on.
Thanks. I don't know anyone's commitment to this organization, but like when I know I have something big going on and this is Sunday, I'm like, hey, I asked my former roommate to proxy for me, or I asked like a friend of mine to proxy for me. Like if I were to go to a conference, or if I'm going home to see my family, I'm saying, hey, I know I have to use a proxy here. It's like in life, you're not gonna like say, oops, I guess I shouldn't be coming to work. I should probably be coming to work more often, and I should probably change the rules at work to like keep me from getting fired. Like you know going into this organization, if you read the bylaws, that you have this many absences and you have this many proxies. You should sort of try to plan around it if you have legitimate excuses.
Noah and Kevin and Gillette.
I object to this. Yes, guys, I'm sorry.
Yeah, good.
I feel like no one was
close that, even though I responded.
I don't think
to
I
it.
like
Okay, so
Are you guys gonna come?
just to play devil's advocate, for one, I understand, like I said before in my, spiel, that it does expand the power of the speaker. However, we could limit that power of the speaker to the Senate's discretion, right? Because KML, who likes to challenge a lot of parliamentary procedures, for example, he could be the one to say, hey, you know what? I think Noah has a really crappy excuse for missing the Senate, right? So I want to send it to CRP. So that's where we would challenge the power of the speaker, and that is where the power of the speaker will ultimately be limited. Your second point about the proxy absences. This legislation allows unlimited amounts of proxy absences, whereas the status quo only shows that we have a cap at 2 proxy absences. So meaning that if, like, for example, I was in like a different organization, then I had to go back home, and then like a third thing came up, and they all were listed as credible, excuse-worthy absences. But I missed 3 Senate meetings in total, and I would have 3 proxies. That would mean that I would go above my limit for proxy absences. And I think it's unfair if we're students here at this university. We're involved in many different things. Things happen, things arise, and the status quo only discourages people from staying in Senate when they, go way above their attendance limit.
Okay, so we have a little bit of a problem. When you sent that link, you sent it to AUSG, and so now everyone is logging on to this bill and they have edit access, including people who aren't in SG anymore who still have emails. So we need to like get rid of this and shut this down now. Because like at this point, Josh Tucker could come on and delete the entire thing. So why don't we leave it
That would be hilarious.
Just change the editing factor.
I'm turning it off.
Just download it.
Just edit.
If you only.
Hey, just download it. I think I got rid of everyone. I think I did.
No. I see Lexi, this is more content.
Okay, good, yes. See, so now it's only the committee. Okay, we're good. This is not good. I was scared. I was who's okay, Alexis.
I just think that like our current I am a very involved student as well, and I think that it's very important for all of us to be involved in other things. But that being said, I also think that our attendance policy allows for senators to get a proxy, and if you are suspended, you can appeal. Just because people have not chose to appeal their suspension and do, come to work, doesn't mean that they don't have the ability to. If I got suspended, I would certainly come above Senate and get a petition and say, I have done my part and I have advocated for the students, and here is why I deserve to be here. And I would hope that the Senate would then, vote properly to put someone back in. Just because someone hasn't done that doesn't mean that that isn't available. So I think that our current attendance policy, it's terrible that you have the possibility to be suspended next week because you are doing something great, but you do have the ability to get a proxy, and you do have the ability, if you are suspended, to put up a petition and come to us and say, and I understand that that is a lot of work, and that you had mentioned in CRP that, people are pushed off by that aspect of it, but at the same time, if you want to be here, if you want to advocate for the students and you want your spot here in Senate, then that's what you have to do. You go through elections, so I think you can.
I just asked Kevin this question, but I'll ask the entire Senate. If you want to, we can do the next round of suspensions today. I can pull up the attendance. I said I'll cross that bridge.
Can we,
I just said,
okay,
if you guys like the current attendance policy, we should stick to it.
Just handle one thing at a time.
okay, so, I think we keep coming back to this argument of we should have unlimited proxies and that we're all very busy. And I get it, we're all very busy. People have Molly UN conferences to go to. People have research projects to do. People have going out of town to see their family. That's great. And you should be a diverse student who does other things. But in life you have to prioritize your time and realize, hey, I'm gonna miss this week. Or hey, I've got something to do. Instead of people wasting is the wrong word. I'm going to say wasting their absences and wasting their misses and wasting their proxies just because they're too lazy to come to work. It doesn't mean we should say we should have unlimited proxies or we should have unlimited excused absences. I feel like we're reinforcing the fact that we aren't trying to do our work and that we're being lazy. I get it, we're busy, but save your misses for when you actually are busy instead of being hungover. But that's just my opinion.
Kevin.
So I have complicated views on this, having been, did you guys know I was a speaker? But also having been a senator for 3 years. I think the creation of an excused absence policy is actually a great thing. And so I definitely support that. I always try to make it an absolute priority to come here. But there are times you can't. And I don't think that, I think we should be cool with that. I don't think that the correct way to do that is by having unlimited excused absences. That's why I think having the proxies in there is a good thing. Having the unexcused absences is a good thing. Yeah, so I think excused absences is a great conversation to have. I'm really happy that we're having it right now. My second point is to Dante's first point. I actually don't have a problem with the speaker being empowered. Shocker. But I do have a problem with the fact that we have said the speaker is not empowered, but now we're going to make him, or the speaker, super political and being able to decide who is and who is not suspendable. So I think this is putting a target on the speaker's back, that all of a sudden people are not going to be mindful that the speaker also has a lot of considerations to take. So I'd actually rather that it be an automatic thing or a more democratic thing. So I'm not entirely sure how to go about that, but again, happy that we're having the conversation. Another thing I would like to do, and I'll bring this up in my second point of debate before we vote, I would like to propose amendments to the overall proxy policy, which appears in the next line, in the bylaw, or the next section of the bylaws. Because right now you have to send in your proxy notice 3 hours in advance. And I personally have never had a problem with that, but it has been challenged in the past that, for example, right, if I had to leave right now and Eric was part of my constituency, or was here, I could say, hey, Eric's gonna take my place. Because really all you need is a body. You need a body to keep quorum. And I think changing that is a good thing to, he could, yeah, I know. Point is,
Who else wants to?
I have a few other things about this that I'll take up later.
Shannon.
I think when it comes to attendance policy, my biggest concern is not, I understand that like there are people that don't come to Senate meetings. What I find a concern is like a committee chairwoman, like it's really difficult with how many people are on my committee to schedule a meeting that everyone can definitely make. And there are times where I have to schedule meetings like knowing that like 2 people can't make that, but if I made it another time, like 5 people couldn't make it, you know? So I just don't think it's fair to people that like we count those as absences, because it's upsetting when people like reach out to me, they're like, hey, like I have to schedule a meeting at like whenever, and they're like, hey, I really can't come to that, but if I schedule another, like it's just not fair. So I think that's what I take issue in when it comes to attendance policy. And that's just kind of my 2 cents. I know that doesn't really have to do with this bill, but like I would love to develop something that, yeah. So.
Any other points of debate?
I think going off of what Shannon just said too, like, I do agree that that's an issue and that can be another bill, but at the same time, like, you can also send a proxy, like, I was at your meeting, like, I was a proxy to someone, you know, like, you can send a proxy to committee meetings as well, like, I agree with Dante that, like, you were elected to be here and you ran and you were, you know, you told the student body that you were gonna be there and you made promises, so you know, I mean, there's only so many times where you can tell someone you're gonna be there and then where you're not reliable. You know what I mean? Like I think adding to an unlimited amount of proxies, I could result in a place where I do just get a proxy every time because I happen to be busy. Like I think that you need to make time to be here if you're serious about your job.
Shannon and Noah.
Yes, like I totally get that and I agree. I just think that when it comes to committee meetings, it's just a lot different than having like Senate meetings, because we have it at like 1 p.m. every Sunday. Committee meetings change like all of the time, and that's what makes it so difficult for me to like. It's just kind of expecting people to show up like on a whim when like you're not really sure when it's gonna be, what's gonna happen, and you're given like a day's notice to have like them. I understand that you can send a proxy, but like we just have like a lot of responsibilities as students, and like I just think that's an additional pressure that I wish we didn't have to have because we could have an unexcused attendance policy or an excused attendance policy when it comes to committee chair. But
No.
I'd like to also add the additional argument that this legislation opens up opportunities school-wide for more students of different backgrounds and different parts of the student body in general to get more involved in student government. And the reason why I say that is that, like I said before, many of us, you know, in general have other commitments as well. And I think it's a blessing that we all have, you know, the honor to be here to serve every single Sunday, well, at least as many Sundays as possible. But I also believe that much of the student body is discouraged from coming here and, you know, representing their peers and colleagues because of the fact that they can't make it to every Sunday, because they don't want to get into politicized issues or whatnot. But by passing a legislation like this one, where we would expand it for students who, you know, for example, have theater on Sunday, who have chapter at 2:30, like VF, who was going to vote in favor of this bill. You know, for other people who have other timely commitments, I think it's a great thing to expand more representation in the student body, and I think that this legislation just does just that. So.
With all your respect, Senate, I would like to say that last Sunday I was at APAC and it was an hour and a half away, and I could have easily missed this meeting. And I decided to come because I had a responsibility. And it took me an hour and a half to leave here. And I still came. Did I leave early? Yes, and I do apologize for that. But what it seems to me is that this is just a title for people who do not want to come, but still want to have this meeting. And I think that, I don't think that, you know, we should do this, because when the first time I got here, the first question I got asked by 2 members of the Senate is, what are your time commitments? Will you be able to commit, a period of time to this? And I said, yes. So that was just.
Kevin?
I have a few amendments. The first is to change, if the COA at the page change, because we changed it to CRP, we just didn't fix that in the entire bill, all in, yeah, right now. Because COA might not exist next year, depending on what the speaker does, so.
Is there any objection to that amendment? Thank you.
The second one, I'd like to amend the bill entirely. Therefore be enacted that the following changes to, and then because the Senate bylaws is a little complicated. So I want it to read that Article 9, or IX, Section 8, subsection lowercase I.
Where do you want me to start this? After this, that?
I have written that article, blah, 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 be amended to read. So at that, yes. 9. Section 8, number 8, subsection lowercase I. Be amended to read. Huh? Of the, yeah, see that, okay. Of the student government bylaws. Just because I don't know where subsection 1 is.
Okay. Is there a second? Second position. Okay, so we're.
The next one, I was talking earlier about proxies, and then I also want to bring up Shannon's later. I'm going to move to add after this, be it further enacted.
Like at the.
Let's do before the effectiveness clause. Be it further enacted that article. Oh wait. Be it further enacted that article 9.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Don't use PCs.
Article 9, Section 8, subsection 4, lowercase I, proxy qualification be amended to read, and I'll email this to you.
What is the title of the subsection? Proxy.
Proxy qualification. Speaker or Gabriel Hunter?
They both go to the same email. It's like an alias.
Sure, there it is. No, that's not there. You can just copy this out, and I'll explain it. What this would do is get rid of the 3-hour notice rule for proxies. I think if we're addressing attendance in total right now, let's just do it. Or I can introduce 5 more bills next week. Oh, did you get rid of the?
I'm sorry, it like
It's okay.
struck it when I copied it over.
No, it's okay.
It starts at type. So here.
Now I got it.
I don't know what can you, I don't think you can do that in Google Docs. That's the problem.
Here. I'll say that.
This is why we don't use Google Docs, people.
This is why we send it downloaded, people.
So what this would do, and I know I don't have a second yet, but it would.
that's something.
Can you turn this second to purple or something?
Red.
No, red is my addition.
And then everything after that too.
And then everything after the speaker in red.
Oh, I didn't mean to do a highlight. I'm sorry. We need to have a clerk that just edits stuff
to change COAs.
Okay. Oh my god.
All right. So while we're figuring this out, is there a second? Is anyone like up for?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it cold in here or is it just
No, it's cold.
Okay. What this, guys? I know it's actually only 3 o'clock and we've been here much longer. But try to stay with me. So what this would do is get rid of the requirement that a senator notify the speaker within 3 hours prior to a Senate meeting. We were talking about how an excused absence might have to be in by 8. I absolutely oppose that, and I'm glad that that's on the bill right now. Essentially, what it would read now is all proxies must be from the constituency which they are representing. That, I don't know if that's grammatical. And shall be confirmed. I want to get rid of either as well. By a notification to the speaker. Gabe probably wants us to include by an official SG email,
But it's at the top of the, yeah.
which I'm open to.
But he added right now, as it stands, this is here, so I feel like that kind of covers it. Please say.
So that's my motion.
This is kind of stressful.
That's my second motion.
It's like the last
I know. But I'd rather a forum than SBC.
Is there a second? No sufficient second?
There was just a second.
Okay,
Just
okay.
a second.
Sorry. Anybody want to?
Clap once if you're paying attention. Thanks,
I just
Can't believe you just did
I can't believe I had to.
Okay, so guys,
I'm putting this.
okay, no points today. We're moving to a vote.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, move to vote by voice on the
All
amendment.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. I'd like only a quarter of the room spoke a word. Okay, so
While we're at it, I also want to address what Shannon was talking about with committees. So I'm gonna include another one. Let's actually put this one after this one because it's subsection 2. No, before this one.
so before this one.
Yes. I knew my dialectics. Is it clear? Be it further enacted that Article 9, Section 8, and then subsection 2. So you can just copy all of it.
Subsection 2.
Subsection 2. The amendment to read. Oh god, because this is where the page breaks, it's not gonna look pretty now.
What's the title of the subsection?
Prox committee absences. And then work with me, because it's in your inbox now. I'm gonna have to amend it right here. Because I thought about this subsection. This is what it says right now. Oh no. Get closer.
No more Google Docs.
The amendment to read, members shall have no more than 2 complete absences from committee meetings and 2 absences by proxy in 1 semester. Shannon, what do you want to do about this?
Sorry. The committee grading?
Yeah.
I would say that we allow for, like, I want it to be if like someone schedules a meeting when you cannot attend, then it's just not an absence.
So let's go with at the end of that, to add an additional sentence. It is up to the discretion of the chair
Yeah.
to determine whether or not an absence is excused and whether an absence is excused.
I think that's fine.
Pursuant to the previous attendance policy. Yeah, that's fine. I was a little too college. So,
Second.
Second.
Any okay?
Anyone have any other attendance related issues?
Well, I was just gonna, honestly gonna say, as a committee chair, it would, like, I have people in my committee who have other commitments, and I totally value that. And Shannon's right, it is hard sometimes to schedule committee meetings. I've always pushed them in the direction of, hey, you can get a proxy, and because we showed up the proxy thing a minute ago, I think it's totally reasonable. It's not a breach of our job, so I motion to vote by hand.
Second.
All in favor, we vote by hand.
All opposed? 10-0. That's passes.
The amendment, that was the amendment on bill.
I know, that's why I said the amendment passes. I'm just saying like the number of people that voted was not the quorum of the room. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
Do we have to? We have fun.
Yeah, just pass. We have, no, I know.
Yeah, Gemini.
Well, that's my agenda. Of course, I've taken that over so.
Oh, yeah, we did.
All my friends were like, "Serious? Where's it going?"
Okay, so what are we gonna do now?
I'm trying. What's that sound? Or I'm not sure.
Someone should ask for live form.
And I feel like I'm such a.
Speaker form call. Live form call.
Do you have a?
Just read it.
Live forum call takes place.
I'll get into a list.
You don't actually have to answer. They just pause while we're doing it. Okay, just say a random senator's name. Tell you don't have to. And then wait 5 minutes and say the next one.
Senator Fernandez?
No, you don't actually have to answer, but thank you. It just pauses business until he's ready to pick up.
Are we ready to pick up? What are we doing?
Until someone dispenses. Yeah, you can do it a little faster.
Senator Noah Levy?
You don't have to.
Senator Noah Levy.
Why am I so sleepy?
No, you don't. You just keep going.
If I don't hear somebody, you're supposed to say it 3 times.
Okay, that is true.
Beetlejuice.
Senator Tia? Senator Tia?
Okay, you can talk a little quieter.
Can you do the phone call?
Senator Tia?
It's a live phone call. It's a way to pause business.
Senator McDermott?
Here.
Senator Torriente? Senator Bucci?
Exactly. Here.
Senator Gillette Pierce?
Yeah.
Senator Kevin Michael Levy?
Actively present.
It's a way to keep consent.
Senator Mascaro?
I'm here.
Senator Arnell?
Here.
Senator Pearl? I'm here.
Are we still voting on I wish I did.
What's your last name? Rogers. Senator Rogers? Senator Knoof? Senator Knoof? Say here. Huh? They have to say it. Senator Pullitz? Kevin, you know, we're almost done with this. If you wanna, we're almost done. Go to this. What are we doing?
I don't know. I didn't answer a phone call.
Mr. Speaker, quorum has been met. I don't know what we're doing.
You just keep reading.
Yeah, but no one knows. What are we waiting for?
Is it ready?
No one knows what you're doing.
Well, you went and talked to him. If no one does anything, then we have to stop doing everything.
Well, shall the show go
I
on?
move to end the forum call and conduct formal business.
Thank you. Are you ready?
Mr. Speaker, I have a comment.
What?
I'd just like to remind all the senators that this is a lot of things. Conduct yourself in a manner that is like the student body.
And they even see me like this.
No, really, actually, the only person that can see is zoom in. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so are you ready?
I didn't ask us to wait. Anyway, okay, yes, if we could scroll up. Mr. Speaker, I have amendments to subsection 1, absences. I want to, let's strike out in the second sentence, yes. Senators are allowed to have up to 2 oh no, I apologize, the third one. There shall be no limit on the amount of absences, complete excused absences, and proxy absences the senator can hold, and I don't know what the rest, but yeah, the whole sentence. I want to change that to senators are limited to 2 excused absences per semester. That's just a number, let's talk.
Oh, 2 excused, sorry.
2 unexcused. Currently, it's 2 unexcused with 2 proxies.
Okay, so did I write it right?
So what are you,
Senators senators are limited to 2 absences, 2 excused absences per semester.
Is that with proxies?
excuses?
As well as proxies.
Yes. Isn't the current?
We should have never even
No,
tried.
we
to
have-
to decide on
and then the two after.
This is why we've never redone it.
Wait, I.
So you,
This is too.
Mr. Speaker, Department. Thank you. So the purpose of the amendment, to answer your question, is 2 unexcused, 2 excused, and 2 proxies. I don't think it should be 2 proxies, 2 unexcused, and as many excused as we want. I think there should be a limit.
I object. Wait, do you even have a second?
I'll second it, I agree.
Devontae was also going there. He's coming back.
Okay, well, I object.
Okay, so we're debating.
Okay, so I object because that's 6 meetings. That's ridiculous. That's a whole semester. You are basically making senators allowed to take a whole semester like you argued earlier. No.
What's up?
So I completely agree with Lex, right? Like this is something that makes me very nervous. My response to Lex's comment would be that the alternative is that you don't have to show up ever. So this at least puts a little bit.
No.
We should put the census.
That's
What did
I agree. But you know what, Kev, I'm sorry. I just don't believe in
You guys all
excused
have
absences because we have the systems in place
You're
for you to plan around excused
Okay,
absences.
but I don't have a problem with how everybody is saying, like, if you don't want to come, then you just don't want to come, or if you don't plan ahead, some shit just, whatever, some stuff just pops up, and everybody is not privileged enough to be able to come and go as they please when they have meetings an hour and a half away. Some people aren't able to do that. Everybody isn't able to come, like transportation costs, honey. Outside of that, I just find it's just ridiculous. Like, if you want to come here on your Sunday, like, you're not getting paid for this, so you come here on your Sunday on your own onus. I doubt that there are people out here who are like, yeah, I just want Senate on my resume. Do you understand how much shit decorum we go through coming here for 4 hours at a time? I don't think anybody would be a senator if they didn't really want to do this and they didn't really want to do something for their
Not to mention
community.
the emotional distress.
Exactly. So buy with that. Buy with you don't want to do your job, or buy with you don't want to represent the people that you're supposed to be representing. That needs to be taken out of the window. If anybody who is in here doing that, if anybody is in here doing that, then they shouldn't be here in the first place. I think everybody in here is responsible enough to be here for a real reason and actually want to do something and affect change on this campus. Some people just do not have the ability to always be here. Some people have mental health issues that bar them from being here every weekend. You know what I mean? And myself included. So I don't understand that whole privilege idea of you just don't want to be here. Let's not make claims for the whole damn Senate decorum.
Okay, is there any more debate on this amendment? Alexis?
The problem that I have with it is your 2 unexcused absences should be your proxies. If you can be excused and not come to Senate if you have a research symposium or anything like that, and you can use a proxy for one of them as well. That's giving you 4. We have, I think there's, 10 weeks in a semester, and most likely 2 of them we don't even have meetings because of fall breaks and other things. So that's already giving you 10 meetings. To have 6 meetings where you cannot miss is more than half the time that we're here. You have 4 already. I mean, I just don't, I think that it's, I don't know. I think that it goes against the point that you made earlier, Kevin, and I don't agree with it.
Sure.
So I do want to talk about like the idea of proxies just a little bit, just kind of a little discussion, I guess. I don't know. I think that when it comes down to it, like, yes, that's true that you could send a proxy for your excused absences, but also at the same time, like, I agree that proxies are important. We should have proxies, but like a lot of the time, like I feel if like something pops up, I feel really uncomfortable asking one of my friends to sit in a 4-hour meeting. Like if I got sick, like that's just not something that I feel comfortable posing on someone. Cause like I get it's my responsibility, but it's my responsibility, not theirs. And if I'm like throwing up, I don't feel comfortable like turning to a friend and being like, hey, can we sit through this 4-hour meeting on a Sunday before like you have like the whole entire week of work? Like that just makes me uncomfortable. So like that's why I think this might be a good idea.
What if you don't have friends?
Who want to do that?
Also, really good point by Gabe.
Like, what friend wants to do that? Why would you put your friend through this?
Chris, see that?
Also, like, right now,
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, I can't hear anyone.
I just wanted to add that like those of us that are senators in schools, it's like so much harder to find a proxy. It's just like,
seniors.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, like bye.
Okay, Chris?
I was just speaking. He's great people. What if in the Senate created a proxy bank of people within school government? I said Senate regularly, and so like, there was a list of people within student government that you can ask to be proxies for you, so you don't have to ask them.
I think that would be nice.
Oh.
Who's gonna do that?
I'm more fun to come.
I was gonna say, the reason why I said no is because.
No.
Wait, what? She said that sounds nice, but who is gonna create the proxy bank and keep it up to him?
He's like, really?
Okay,
Done a
Mr.
world tour.
Mr. Speaker.
This bill.
Great.
So, to Chris's last point, like, old SG precedent says that execs can't proxy for senators. I disagree with that.
No,
So-
we don't wanna do it.
Okay,
There are people who are in the organization who sit like, what?
No, I understand that. I understand that. That's also why we just added in, you can do it immediately. You can like I can walk out and say, Sasha's my proxy, bye. So I think that we're getting away from this amendment. To answer Lex's earlier accusation of hypocriticism, she's absolutely correct, right? Like, I don't believe that you should be able to have 6 absences because that is like the majority of the semester. But I recognize that excused absences are a good thing because people need them. And I think that at least some portion of this bill will pass, which is why I like it to be a stomachable version of something that I'm not fantastically in favor of, as opposed to something that I just absolutely disapprove of. Again, if we don't remove this and the bill does pass, you have unlimited excused absences. So, I mean, like, I would think that if people oppose the excused absences, they would try to amend it to say 1 or 0.5 or 1 committee absence, instead of trying to keep it at unlimited excused absences.
Okay, any more debate on this amendment? All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no?
No.
Yeah, y'all make
I
that
motion
down real
to
hard.
aye.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All those opposed? I vote of 8-2. A bunch of y'all aren't voting. The amendment passes. Okay, Dante, you want to go down?
Yeah, so I have an amendment that I feel like it's critical to add because we've done all this stuff. So we work on a point system for absences, and that point system isn't really anywhere in our governing documents, to be honest, and I feel like it's important that we should put them there. Because there have been instances where people have missed my committee and I don't know how to deduct them for points, because like it's just, what? Okay, I'm sorry. So I moved to amend the legislation. I need your help, Gabe, on this one because I don't know exactly what the point system is or where like the legally listed. Because you work with it on a daily basis.
Yeah, so essentially the point system is a point, one apps, this is how it's been done, this is how my predecessors did it. 1 Senate absence is a point, 1 proxy full Senate absence is a half a point, 1 committee absence is a half a point, and 1 committee proxy absence is a quarter of a point, and then 1 office hour miss per office hour is a half a point.
So
Because by the way, I consulted with Eric about this 2 weeks ago, just in case you guys are curious, and this is why I had stopped counting them. Office hours are neither required, nor outlined, nor mentioned in any of our governing documents. So this might be a good place to add those in if you guys like office hours, because they technically don't exist.
Damn.
Yeah, no. So, what do y'all want to do?
Alright, I move to add a therefore clause that amends Article 9, Section 7.
Sorry, Section 8.
Yeah, it's in Section 8. No, Section 8, you're right.
Section 8, subsection 1.
5. No,
7.
Oh, okay, a new one, okay, so 7.
Do you want to create a new one?
Yes.
Thank you.
And this is it would be subsection 7.
Subsection 7, yes, VII. And it would be.
What would the title be?
I was gonna say, I don't know.
Absence point system.
Yeah, absence point system.
Be straight up with what it is.
What would the text of the bill, of the subsection be?
It should say, what do you think? I was gonna say in regards to, absences of, yeah. I was gonna be long-winded about it, but no need for that.
Do you want to add office hours or not?
Yes, yes.
So then we have to add office hours somewhere else.
Yeah, we can do it here.
No, I'm saying, but they don't exist as a thing. So you can't refer to office hours and then.
Really? I think
we're good.
Yeah. Again, if it mandates that we should do office hours in the point system, I think it's pretty universal. People would.
Yeah, well,
But I'm saying, like, there's no, like, what does that mean? Like, office hours once a week or they? That's my problem.
So office hours have been addressed several times in other pieces of legislation. I know the last Senate passed a bill saying people can do their office hours outside, roving hours, so office hours do exist, not necessarily in bylaws, but in section. Okay, and then Gabe, is that all of the thing?
That's the whole point system.
Sure. So.
Oh, but do you guys want to set a guideline for what the maximum points are before you're suspended?
So is it?
It's 4 right now. Do you want to keep it 4?
Yeah, let's keep it.
Do you want to be at 4 or above 4?
Once you are above 4, you should be automatically suspended. No interpretation of it. Because we have all these new things.
Yeah, which means this line kind of refutes a lot of other things about.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
I think this needs to go back to committee.
Yeah, I have a question. At this point, at this point, I don't really mind because.
Is there a second on the amendment real quick?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
And then now we can go to debate. Go ahead.
No, I don't have a point in this amendment, so I'll wait until we get out of this.
Okay.
I second.
Any debate?
I move to amend the amendment. So since we're being very lenient about, not lenient, we're being very proactive about proxies, I would like to get rid of the presence of a proxy counting as an absence. I think if you're doing your due diligence to get a proxy here, you shouldn't be penalized for that. Especially because if you utilize both of those proxies, that's already 1 point. But we're already saying like, great job, family.
Yeah.
So you want to get rid of the proxy line?
Okay, I actually, can I object really quickly to that? Just to make a point.
Is there a
So-
second on your amendment?
Second.
Okay, go ahead.
So I don't necessarily disagree with that portion of this. What I would say is that it is generally not, at least as long as I've been involved, practice to take a bill that is completely unrelated to what we're now doing and like amend it to pieces so that we have a totally new discussion. A lot of these are interesting ideas that I think I would like to maybe support. It just seems a little odd that we're now tackling the entirety of the absentee policy all at once without going through committee, without any discussion. It just sort of happened.
That was the point of this bill. This bill, in its original form, completely got rid of the attendance policy and created that new line of text. And it was passed through committee.
But this is a completely new bill now. Like, it needs to go to committee, I think. It needs to-
I'm just saying, that's literally what it is.
So the title of the bill is a bill to establish firm Senate attendance policy. While we're establishing firm Senate attendance policy, I'd like to establish a firm Senate attendance policy that doesn't just fix one thing. I think you're sitting right here. I would have loved to do this in committee, but we had a half hour because we're not really good at scheduling time. And because we think, oh, it's a small bill, so it won't take a half hour.
We started 10
My
minutes
point
late.
is, while I still hold the floor, thank you, is that I think we're sitting here talking about attendance policy. I'll be happy to introduce 10 more bills by the time I graduate, focusing on small, itty-bitty bylaws. But I think we're talking about attendance, let's do it.
I'll move to vote on the amendment.
Second.
All those in favor say, to strike the language in red, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it. Move the minutes back to
I motion to vote on the legislation.
Second.
Also, I just want to let you know that you actually now have conflicting language in multiple places.
Yeah, please.
This is why it needs to go back to committee.
Yeah.
Like, can I table it to committee, please?
I
But,
second
I mean, if
that.
your motion stands, I'm just saying that there's like things that actually like.
I'll
Can you
pull my
withdraw?
motion. I'll pull my motion.
Can we please table this to committee so that we
Which
can
committee?
properly, CRP.
I know, it's a bylaw.
It's a bylaw.
I second
CRP.
I second.
The opposition. Okay, state the name.
I think we're sitting right here. Well, actually, you know what? No, we have no new business. Is anyone planning on introducing anything next week?
Who knows?
I'm not sure.
Probably not.
Oh, jolly
The
objection.
blank budget bills.
Oh,
Okay,
jolly
so
objection.
seeing no objection, the bill will go back to committee. I can just close this now because it
Why don't you
saves
go
it,
ahead and
right?
copy it into a document?
But right
It'll
now.
just make me feel so much more time.
Right now, do that later.
Yeah. Yes.
Hold on, just wait, just wait.
Will it save it?
It says all changes.
So I can close this now. Sorry. I don't know how Google works. Okay, so,
I have it.
okay, here we go.
Let's have it.
Public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, I just had one more thing, while we're, before we just sent this back to committee. I really hope everyone reads this bill and considers all the changes. I recognize Will's point. I did a lot with this bill. It is, not unheard of to completely gut bills or add bills, but like the bill I did with Sasha.
And she vetoed it.
And she did, absolutely.
So
But again,
learn.
while I have the floor and we have established that interrupting
I
people is
don't
not
plan
right.
on vetoing any legislation about internal Senate policy.
So,
Don't use me.
again, I hope that since we decided this is a really important thing that we sit on it for a week, everyone please read it.
Cool.
Full hours here.
Which part?
Numbers,
We're going back to committee.
If we all read it, then we should not be here for a long time.
You're here.
Right? Cool. Bet.
Dante, you have a question? Me? No, I thought we were moving on. No motion to compare.
I'm not, what?
No, I'm not. It's okay, I know. Okay, public comment? Yeah.
So this week, the applications for the new executive cabinet position were uploaded. So we encourage you all to share it with friends who are not directly like get involved. There are upwards of 30 to 35 positions available throughout all cabinets. And then there will be executive positions that will become available in the fall, so the freshmen will apply. We tried to send multiple student body-wide emails on Friday, encouraging students to apply. Unfortunately, our email systems also spans AU student emails. So we will be working on that, and hopefully we can get that out shortly, Monday or Tuesday. We will be working with student actors to get that done. But, and if, for the live stream,
Thank you.
coming in. And
I'm sorry, I was just reading for the.
Okay. Let's just go left to right.
So everyone, thank you for, well, no, not everyone. Thank you to the people who weren't listening to music and chatting on their phones. So thank you to most people in the room who were listening to me, during the meetings. I, like I said, have a lot of legislation coming down the pipeline. I'm very happy, well, actually, this is still Noah's bill. But I'll come to CRP next week and then talk about it. I think we're making a good bill better. That's how I'm trying to look at this. And instead of coming back with another bill and another bill and another bill, while we're talking about attendance policy, let's talk about it. My second thing that I'm talking about is this is the folder that I use to represent the Will Mosquero campaign for president and to prepare for the hearing. As a lot of you guys know, I am going to law school in the fall. You shouldn't need to go to law school to get through an elections hearing procedure. This is 70 pages. I spent $7 at the printing, at the ink printer. Yes, it is.
So I'm gonna make a motion to.
Point is, again, while we're all here, we have a lot of stuff to get through. I have, right now, the elections policy book and the judicial register, and they're all marked up. Things that I feel super strongly about, things that I'm curious what other people feel about, and things that are getting, they're gone. I'm not negotiating. I really hope that over the next 2 weeks, this is of interest to other people, because it's you guys who are gonna have to put up with it next year, because someone in this room is gonna run for SG president, someone in this room is gonna run for SG Senate, and this is the other reason why we're here. In addition to advocating for actual change on campus, this is the things that give you agita at night. So I have emails out to a lot of people who work on the administrative side. I'm looking forward to working with Eric, to Jamie, to Noah, to Sasha, but also senators, former candidates, candidates-elect. If you are interested in getting involved with changing elections policy to make it more accessible to John Q student instead of having to need a pre-law student to get you through a hearing, let's chat.
We will be willing to Skype into hearings though, I'm sure. From law school itself.
Yes, as Chris said, applications did go out. I encourage everyone to apply. Tell your friends to apply as well. There are a ton of positions that I have to fill, and there are so many other cabinets to fill as well. Also, on the point that was mentioned earlier about the transition stuff, I'm starting interviews this week, so I plan to have the directors that need to be confirmed by Senate chosen in order for you to confirm them by the 17th, hopefully, so that way, as Gabe said, we're not backlogged. But that's specifically for my cabinet. I'm not speaking for the other cabinets as well. Kate can touch on her stuff as well, but I definitely encourage everyone to apply. I should have staff director and chief of staff ready to go by the 17th.
Oh, that was me.
No,
okay. Yeah, so good meeting, I guess. Thank you so much to Mr. Gillette Pierce for coming and giving us that responsibility training. I think that it gave us a lot of it was a great training, and it gave you a lot of good feedback that you can use to go on into the future with it, which is great. So I did the Workers' Appreciation Day. I'm sure, as Carlos posted, I was the only senator there. It was a great ceremony. They had great food. The ambassador was there, and it was just a great event. And there was a lot of workers there who really appreciated seeing students, not only students from student government, but students that Carlos has and had invited, and other students that had heard about the event that just come out to see what it was about. And so it was awesome to talk with the workers and just to say thank you to them. That being said, I only got about 25 cards that day from students that were there. I even had some faculty, about 10 faculty members, return a separate file, write cards. I had 2 graduate students write cards to workers. So this is not just a USG or student, just students. It's faculty and everyone who wants to be involved with thanking the workers of this university. And so I have gone and talked to a lot of other people and gotten about 135 cards signed by students. But that being said, I still need about 170 more. So I'm really going to need everybody's help by the end of the semester when Carlos
myself and one of his people to go deliver them all, I still need 170 cards. So I'm going to need everybody to pitch in writing thank you cards to them. I thought it was also really cool that a lot of students wrote to Spanish to the workers. So those are in a separate pile to make sure that Spanish-speaking workers are able to receive them. A lot of people have also reached out saying, hey, can I write it to a particular worker? And so I have a lot of ones specifically for particular workers as well, which I think is really cool. So I really like you guys to reach out to me and write cards. I've been writing cards every night, but I really love everybody's help in this because we are the Senate who is thanking them and we recognize the day. So that's kind of that. So have a great week and see you all next week.
I have 3 things to say. First, I finished the ombuds report that I was talking about maybe last week, week before, maybe, I'm not sure. It was some kind of weeks ago. Let me know if you want it. I will be happy to send it to you. Secondly, financial aid report. I had some questions about data either last week or the week before. I have a graduate level statistician working on it. It should be fine. I'm stoked. We hope to have a first draft done in the next week or 2, which I'm so excited about. Third thing, transition. Our transition director is Leah Lambert. She is so cool. I'm so excited. She's currently Sasha's executive director of Diversity Inclusion. She's awesome. Hit her up if you have any questions about transition. Apply to all of our cabinets, and all of my people will be going up to 24.
I was just gonna say, if anyone has any questions at all about the budget process, if you have friends who have questions about it, please email me whenever you want. I'm gonna probably send out the memo on Wednesday. I might do it a little sooner. I just want everyone to feel like super comfortable with what's happening and like really in control of the process. So if you have questions, let me know.
And last, like, thank you to people who showed up early and on time for the training. For everybody else who did not, you know that you still have to do it. So I'll see you soon. And then thanks for passing the bill today. That's the second of my 2 bills, and I now am happy with what I've done here. So thank you for helping me make that happen.
Hi everyone. Thanks for meeting. Thank you to Gillette for coming in early and having the trainings. I thought it was really beneficial and there were a lot of great discussions that happened. I'm happy that they did happen. Secondly, I don't know if there's any cupcakes left. My roommate works at Georgetown Cupcakes and we're trying to get rid of them, so they're in the front. And thirdly, I know you've heard it from like Devontae and Faith, but like please apply. I would be honored to read any of your applications. So yeah, I have 3 positions and mine will be going up to 24. So yeah, just, please just click on. Also, not only like apply, but like please share it. Because like there could be someone that's interested in like, there could be someone that's interested in a position that like is one of your friends that normally wouldn't see like the application. So just share it on Facebook today. Share it on Facebook today.
Hey guys, so sort of historian work, sort of the resolution that we passed a while back about financial accountability. A survey went out, thank you to Chris, last week, soliciting data from a random population of the students, just trying to get their opinions on SG, on media board, on club council, on specific executive departments. We're looking right now at about a 7% response rate. We're probably not going to do a report until we at least double that. But we have some preliminary numbers. If you have any specific questions, obviously that'll go to the budget committee when they get full started. And if you have any questions about that in general, just let me know.
So this actually is a really exciting announcement. It has, I just thought this was a good form to share it because I don't know how else to share it. But as some of you may know, I'm on a committee in the CFO's office that has to do with social responsibility and other important things. And so I have a really cool update as a team member. And so I'm going to try to like read through the bullet points. It's really exciting. So the council at AU identified an independent firm that specializes in employment and labor issues, and that firm has begun conducting a performance audit of Aramark's practices related to housekeeping services performed at AU. This includes reviewing existing contracts and associated documents related to housekeeping services, and reviewing wages, benefits, and other work conditions related to Aramark employees, and reviewing policies and practices related to grievance procedures at Aramark. Because of the collective bargaining agreement, the Service Employee International Union that governs individual agreements and governs food workers, they were not ready for a Utah independent firm to look into that kind of stuff. So this is just kind of an overarching housekeeping. It's a start, I suppose. So the name of the company that's investigating is Coleman on Saucer, PA. It's a Baltimore-based law firm. And we hope that they're going to have a preliminary report to our project team at the end of this month, and then hopefully that report will be released to the community with recommendations to the president and the CFO.
Sweet.
So it's really exciting. Yeah, because that's a huge step for ADA to take. So
On that note, I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Coleman.
K-O-L-L-M-A-N. K-O-L-L-M-A-N. And then the second one is S-A-U-I.
Yeah.
No, S-A-U. C-I-E. Yeah, the reason why is because we just got email on Friday saying it is open. Yes. Because we didn't know if we could, and this is what everybody says. It says, you should feel free to share the information we provided about the performance audit. And then it said the name of the person. So I think I'm good.